What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new tier list, and this is one that I imagine some of you have been waiting for a very long time. I have had this suggestion plenty of times in the past, and today is the day. We are going to be doing a tier list ranking all of the Blumhouse Productions films that I have seen. Now, that's an important caveat. I'm not ranking everything they've ever done. At least a third to a half of their movies I have not checked out, but I have seen quite a few. This is a list of 85 different films, most of which are horror, but there's a few in here that might actually surprise you, are tied to Blumhouse Productions. And this is actually a Patreon pick video. So my Patreon page is a crowdfunding source for all of my fans that actually want to contribute to the channel financially and get different perks in exchange for that. I do weekly live Q&As over there every single Sunday for my largest tier or my most expensive tier. I also do live video hangouts for about an hour once a month. And a Patreon pick is another one of those perks where a large group of the tiers that I have on there are able to actually suggest video ideas, and then I do a poll of my favorite ideas, and whichever one wins, I produce that video, and that's once a month. So this month, Blumhouse tier list was the winner. So with the release of Lee Cronin's The Mummy especially, and with the brand new film Obsession that I've been hyping up like a motherfucker coming out in just less than a month, this is a great time to do it. And the 5 tiers that we're going to be ranking all 85 of these movies on, from the bottom, the worst of the worst, that is in the sunken place. These are all the movies that I think are just offensively bad. Then we have right above that, The Grabber's Basement. These are movies that aren't good, but aren't quite as offensive as the ones below it. Then you have Survive the Purge. These are all for all the films that I think are fine, they're okay, they're watchable. And then Bagul Made a Copy is all of the films that I think are genuinely good. I enjoy them. I would rewatch them, and many of these I have. And then the top tier for the best of what Blumhouse Productions has to offer, we have Fully Obsessed. As always, this is a public tier list. The link will be down in the video description below if you would like to make your own, do your own video, or just send a picture on Instagram or Twitter or wherever else and tag me in it. I encourage you to do that and see how all of our lists change. And with that being said, let's crack this bitch open. And all 85 of these films I have arranged in release order. And so the first one that I saw, and the one that actually put Blumhouse on the map, is the original Paranormal Activity. Now, I've talked about this movie and this franchise quite a few times, so there's going to be a number of movies on this list that I probably won't spend a lot of time on compared to some others. Paranormal Activity, a lot of you guys know my thoughts. I'm not really a big found footage guy. There's about 4 or 5 of them that I genuinely like. Paranormal Activity is not quite on that list, but I do think it's decent. So I'm going to stick it in Survive the Purge. I think that it's a good one-time watch. This is the only one in the franchise I have watched a second time, and they just don't really hold up on rewatch. The big issue I have with all found footage films, or at least the majority of them, is that the pacing just kills it for me. I understand a slow build. I understand a meticulous increase of tension throughout a film, but almost all of these movies, because of budget restrictions, have nearly nothing happening until the last 10 to 15 minutes. Then it goes nuts and gets my attention, and then it just hard cuts to black. Paranormal Activity is certainly not immune to that rule. So I understand why some people love it. It's not my thing. Moving on to Paranormal Activity 2, and basically repeat what I just said for this one, only this one is less memorable than the first one. I'm still going to stick it in Survive the Purge because I remember it being decent, but I don't remember a whole lot about the actual details, the story, as much as I do the first one. Insidious. Now, this is another big franchise starter here, James Wan film, and when this movie first came out, this probably would have been in the top tier for me. It has since lost a little bit of its luster, but it's going to make it up to Bagul Made a Copy. Insidious is a really solid haunted house film, does a really cool twist of all of that, where it's the person that's haunted and not the house. There's some amazing jump scares in here. The cast is great, as well as the performances. It's got one of the most iconic jump scares of all time, certainly of the last 20 years. The part of it that has aged a little poorly for me is just the way that the jump scares are executed, and it's almost always by just having a loud, like, string instrument rise in the score. And I like jump scares when they're done well, but some of my least favorites are the ones where it's literally just startling you with the sound rather than like really setting up a good amount of tension and faking you out. So Insidious kind of does both, but I'm just not as enamored with it as I once was. Paranormal Activity 3. Now, this one is actually my favorite of the Paranormal Activity films. I like the fact that it's set in the 90s. I like the fact that it's like VHS cameras, that kind of vintage look about it. I actually enjoy the fact that a lot of it is focused on these two little girls, and the dad is the one kind of trying to figure things out. And I think the ending's pretty creepy too. So of all of them, if I was going to rewatch them, it would be this one. And yet I've never had the desire to rewatch it. So I'm still going to stick it and Survive the Purge, but just for the sake of saying it, that is my favorite of the franchise. Lawless. This is one that I think a lot of people wouldn't realize Blumhouse had their hand in. And this is a really solid flick. I'm sticking it up in Bagul Made a Copy. It is like a Prohibition era crime thriller. And they are a group of brothers that are moonshiners. And then you have like Gary Oldman as a big mob boss in here. And then, of course, you have Guy Pearce with the most ridiculous part in his hair as like this FBI guy who's coming to stop them, and he's just a sadistic fuck. So this is a really solid flick that actually goes for it. It's pretty dark, it's pretty brutal, and I think the dynamic between Shia LaBeouf and Tom Hardy especially is really great in this. Famously, Shia has talked about it in the past where they actually, like, I guess got physical on set because of a clashing of personalities, which, given the history of Shia LaBeouf, is not too hard to believe. But Lawless, really solid flick. Check it out if you haven't. Then we got Sinister, another what should have been a franchise starter, and this one is another really good one. I'm going to stick it up into Bagul Made a Copy. And you know, the unfortunate thing about Sinister is for all the things that I really do like and respect about it, I've never been able to love it on the level that I think I would have, because that trailer spoiled damn near the entire film. Now, that has been a trend for Blumhouse going forward. They are almost synonymous with spoiler-filled trailers, and Jason Blum himself has even acknowledged this and explained why. Which is all analytics driven, which is depressing, but you know, he's probably right. And if I was the one signing the checks and making decisions to make money, I guess I understand his motivation. It just sucks as a fan. Sinister is a film that I really think if I did not watch the trailer and I walked into this thing more on the blind side, this would have made the top tier. It would have been one of my favorite horror films of all time. But so much of this, I knew where it was going because of the trailer. They even have third act shit in the trailer. With that aside, Ethan Hawke is amazing in this. Bagul is a great movie monster. The concept of using these little snuff tapes, these little Super 8 tapes to get like your really horrifying sequences is a really creative thing. I love the way that Scott Derrickson shoots and uses Super 8 and grainy and all that type of stuff to kind of really effectively impact the horror. He does it even better in Black Phone 2, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But this is a film that I just always felt like I kind of saw the best parts of it coming. So I wish I could put it higher. It deserves to be higher, but that's just my experience with it. Paranormal Activity 4, not a fan of this one. This one, the cool thing about this is it gave us Catherine Newton. You know, I think this was one of, if not her first films. And of course, she's great, especially now. But this is serious diminishing returns at this point. And I remember almost nothing about it aside from the fact that this was my least favorite of the four at that point. So we're sticking it in the grabber's basement. Lords of Salem, another one that people might not realize is a Blumhouse film. Now, this is what I'll say about Lords of Salem. I don't think it's a great movie, mostly because of the third act. I think that if this had a better third act and a better ending, this would easily be my favorite Rob Zombie film, because this is his best work as a director. Visually, I think this film is amazing. It is very obviously trying to homage things like Fulci films and a lot of Giallo films. There's all these like dark reds and even just the ominous tone that it has. It is genuinely creepy at times, some really effective scares, which is something I would never say about any Rob Zombie film outside of this. It's all just kind of like crazy characters and gore and intensity and stuff, but not really like actually making me feel nervous and tense. This film does. And for as much as I will always say that I don't feel that Sherry Moon Zombie is a very good actress, and I think even though I absolutely love and understand the fact that they are like a power couple and Rob will always find a way to put her in his films, I appreciate that, but I also think sometimes she drags the films down a little bit. This is by far her best performance. So this is a movie that I think showcases her potential more than anything else. If it had a better ending, it would be higher. But I'm sticking it in Survive the Purge. When I look at what he does in this film as a director, it just makes me feel even stronger that if Rob Zombie would ever just direct a script that somebody else wrote, he has the potential to deliver a horror film that most people would call an all-timer, not just Rob Zombie fans. So Lords of Salem, that's where it goes for me. Now we have The Purge, the beginning of another big franchise for this production company, Blumhouse. The Purge is a little bit weird. So fitting, I'm going to stick it in Survive the Purge. This first one, I think, is solid. It's a decent enough home invasion film. I think Ethan Hawke is really good in it. I think the masks and the characters that are outside the house trying to get in are effectively creepy. The problem with this movie is that it creates a concept of the purge, which is where the country locks down for the night and all crime is legal, and people that are rich are able to actually like lock their houses down and they don't really have to be affected by it, while everybody that is low income is fucked. And when you have that concept, which is a brilliant concept, but you confine us to Ethan Hawke's house, all you want is to see the actual purge. All you want to do is get out of the house and experience what is going on out in the streets, which is why they eventually went that direction immediately after this one. So the purge is a weird one where it's a great concept, but it feels like it kind of wastes its own concept in a lot of ways as well. Insidious Chapter 2, I don't know if this is a hot take or not. This is my least favorite of the Insidious films. I don't really care for this movie. It's got some good scares. Of course, James Wan's direction is great here, but I just don't really like narratively where it goes. I think that Insidious should have been a one and done, honestly. Maybe I'll get contradictory with that when I talk about the next one, but as far as the story of this family, at least, it should have ended at the end of Insidious. I don't like the fact that we continue on from that and then escape that really dark, fucked up ending. So I'm not a fan. Grabber's Basement. Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. This one is one that I think is much better than 4. We'll say that. So I'm going to stick it up into Survive the Purge. I honestly can't remember, like, if I was to weigh it or rank all of these next to the first 3 films. I know I don't like it as much as the third film, but where it stacks among the first 2, honestly can't remember. But I remember liking that this film kind of takes a journey away from some of the template and the visuals of the first 4 and goes into like this Latino community, and it's more about like the lore and some of the culture there, which I think brings an interesting dynamic to it. I think the scares and the overall plot of the movie was more engaging than the 4th one. So it's okay. Again, never had the desire to rewatch it, and you can tell I'm kind of struggling to remember it to a certain extent, so can't put it too high. Oculus. This is Mike Flanagan's film, and I'm also going to stick this one in Survive the Purge. I think that's going to be our most popular tier for the day, let's be honest. Mike Flanagan is an amazing storyteller, and I like every single one of his films. But aside from Dr. Sleep, I've never loved any of his films. I always think that they're solid, but there's weaknesses there that always hold it back. I think he's such a character-driven writer that all of his strengths as a storyteller are really on better display with his TV work. I think all of his TV work is significantly stronger than his film work, and we'll see what happens with his Exorcist film. But Oculus, I think, has some great scares. It's got some good tension. It's got some solid characters. The problem with Oculus for me is that it's one of those films that is trying to like distort reality for the viewer, where you never really know or are confident if what you're watching is actually happening or if it's some kind of apparition or some kind of like hallucination that this mirror is creating. And in the third act, you're going between that so often that like when a movie does that, I kind of just throw my hands up. Like I'm no longer engaged trying to figure out what's real or not. I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't fucking know. I can't keep up with what's real and what's not. So I guess it's all fake. It's all real. Who knows? And the ultimate conclusion of the movie, which for some is a very shocking ending, for me, it was like, that was the inevitable ending, so it didn't really hit me the way that it hit others. But Oculus is solid. 13 Sins. Now, this is a pretty low-budget film. I think it was direct-to-video. Don't quote me on that. And I didn't even realize it was a Blumhouse film, but I actually have a soft spot for this one. I'm going to stick it up into Bagul Made a Copy. Now, of the 4 movies here, it is clearly on the bottom of those 4, if I was to rank them, but this is a film that I actually think is a pretty underrated little solid flick, where you get a guy and he gets this mysterious text message saying, hey, if you like swat this fly, I'll give you $100. And so he does it, and then bing, $100 ends up in his bank account. And, you know, for 13 different rounds, basically, he's stuck in this game where progressively the things that he has to do to win this money, and the money increases, get more and more ridiculous and dangerous and sinister, all the way up to the point of people dying and limbs being sawed off and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool movie. I'm not saying that it's a horror classic by any means. It's definitely got its flaws. It's got its limitations with the budget, but I've always enjoyed it. Now we have The Purge Anarchy, easily the best of the Purge franchise to me. This is basically like a Punisher film set during the Purge, which is fucking awesome. So this one I'm going to stick up into Bagul made a copy too. I don't think that the Purge movies have ever nailed like an all-time classic for me, but that's as close as they have gotten. This is where immediately after a lot of the vocal disappointment of the first film, they said, okay, let's set it during the Purge. Now you're stuck outside. Are you happy? Yes. Yes, we're happy. There are some really great tension here. Even just the scene of like an hour before the Purge is about to start, you got the people in the street with the masks and the machetes and shit getting ready to fucking lay waste. It's a really solid sequel. Frank Grillo is awesome in this. You get multiple different characters, so it's kind of a little bit of an ensemble piece to a certain degree where everybody's kind of got their own stories, their little side plots going on. All the way up to an ending that I really like. So if you're going to watch a Purge film and you haven't, this is the one to watch. Now we have Whiplash. I bet most of you watching did not realize that Whiplash was a Blumhouse film. And Whiplash is one of the best movies to come out of the last like 15 years. Fully obsessed with Whiplash. It's amazing. I haven't really been all that enamored with what Damien Chazelle has done since, even though I think that he is continuing to show how awesome of a director he can be. Story and style-wise, I just haven't been enamored with anything since, but Whiplash is genuinely great. This is a movie that I really didn't have on my radar. I really didn't have any interest in it, just with the basic pitch of it. It's like, oh, it's a movie about a kid who's got dreams to be the best drummer and his teacher's an asshole. This is not a film that I would have clicked on at the time that it came out, but a couple of YouTube reviewers that I watched before I was even doing this had it in their top 10 of the year, and I was like, okay, let me give this thing a shot. And holy shit, this movie is amazing. J.K. Simmons absolutely deserved the Best Supporting Actor Oscar that year. Miles Teller is amazing too. It is some of the most genuinely tense face-offs just between characters and personalities that you're going to see. I think the ending is incredible. This is damn near a 5 out of 5 movie, if not a 5 out of 5 movie for me. I love Whiplash. Now we got Ouija, another attempt to start a franchise, and ooh, what a failed attempt it was. But I will tell you, I don't think this is nearly as bad as some people make it out to be, and maybe that's because of the existence of the prequel that we'll talk about in a little bit. I'm going to stick it in the grabber's basement. This is a film that's just incredibly generic. It's very run-of-the-mill. It feels like a bunch of other movies. I don't think anything in it is like absolutely insulting and miserable to watch. It just doesn't really have any teeth to it. It doesn't have anything unique. It's just, let's change the device of what is causing the horror to a Ouija board, and then you've seen everything else this movie has to offer. And now we have Unfriended. And I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I really like Unfriended. I'm going to stick it up into Bagul Made a Copy. I think this is a very underrated franchise. I wish they would have made 2 or 3 more of these and a few less of the Paranormal Activities and the Purge films, honestly. And what's interesting about it is that this very much like rubs shoulders with the found footage style and the found footage genre that I don't typically get won over very easily with, but I really enjoy the style of a Screen Life film. To me, it just works. I don't know what the difference is and why one works so much easier than the other, but Unfriended, I think, honestly, there's an argument to say that this is like a modern take on a slasher film. Yes, it's not people being chased by a masked killer or somebody with a machete, but you have a group of characters, like 4 or 5, that are on this Zoom call, and there is a entity out there that has targeted them, and one by one, they get killed very gory and in violent ways. And so it has kind of the skeleton of a slasher film with the skin of a haunting movie. And so I really dig this one. I think that the characters and the story and the way that it's shot and edited together is really solid. The overall message about online bullying and everything, I think, works pretty well here. So not necessarily a film that I will rewatch all the time, but I have rewatched it and I still think it's a damn solid movie. So what the fuck, Blumhouse? Give me an Unfriended 3. I'm waiting. Insidious Chapter 3. This was my lesson, one of the many lessons that I will have in my career as a movie reviewer, critic, whatever you want to call me, in not judging a book by its cover. Because when they announced, especially after my disappointment with Insidious Chapter 2, when they announced that Insidious Chapter 3 was going to be handed over from James Wan to Leigh Whannell, who at that time had never directed a film, all I expected was a massive drop-off. Because to me, I don't think his acting is good at all in the original Saw. I mean, he's not an actor, so it is what it is. And I guess because James Wan was always the much bigger name, I unfairly always figured that he was probably the one with all the best ideas and Lee was just kind of like the silent partner in there. I don't know why. I just walked in going, whatever. This is my favorite of the Insidious films. I think it has the best scares. I don't necessarily think that the story is better than the first one, but I think this is the most memorable horror experience, and it fully ages well for me, where the first one doesn't completely. So I'm actually going to stick this one up into Bagul Made a Copy. I think that the whole thing of confining this girl to the bed because of her accident is like a great plot device to make her so vulnerable and really amp up the tension in certain scenes, like when the breathing man spirit is walking to the room and like closing the windows and closing the doors and stuff. Amazing sequence. So aside from some hammy acting from Dermot Mulroney, this is a really damn good sequel. Creep. I wish I loved Creep. I love the idea of Creep, but again, see my found footage hate, I guess, if you will. But this one, interesting idea. Mark Duplass is absolutely the star of the show. I'm going to stick it in Survive the Purge. I think Creep is solid as a one watch. I think the idea of it is interesting, having this guy who's just weird and you're kind of experiencing it through the eyes of the person that I guess answers like his help wanted ad or his Craigslist ad or whatever it was that kicked it off. And I kind of felt like my biggest issue with it is the ending kind of felt a little stupid to me. You know, I'm not going to spoil what happens, but the character decision the main character makes at the very end of the film, I'm like, I don't buy somebody would do that. But I get it. I get the appeal of this. I know people are enamored with Creep. Creep Tapes as a show was a pretty big hit, and they had season 2. So not trying to yuck on your yum, just Creep for me. Solid found footage. Not one of the few that I really, really love. The Gallows. Right there with Ouija, where people really hate this film, and I don't think it's quite that bad. It's not good, though. So we're going to stick it in the grabber's basement. I think it's honestly the school setting that does a lot of heavy lifting for this. I really think that a locked up school at night is one of the creepiest settings that you can put a horror film in. See like the original Prom Night with Jamie Lee Curtis. That really works well for me in this. I also think there's some pretty solid scares. And while I won't say it was like a big shock or anything like that, I like the way the story wraps up. I like the whole thing with what happens on stage and then the final scene where, you know, the cop goes into the house and finds the mom and the daughter and she's brushing her hair and shit. Like, I thought that was actually pretty creepy. So again, not a hit by any means, but maybe hearing all of the unbelievable amount of hate this movie got before I actually watched it maybe softened it. Sometimes that happens where you expect like the worst thing ever. And because it's not that, you're like, you know, actually there's some redeeming qualities there. I'll give you that. The Gallows, that's where it goes for me. The Gift, another one that is going to be one of those hidden gems on this list that people don't usually call out when they talk about Blumhouse. The Gift is phenomenal. The Gift is going right up into Fully Obsessed. This was actually directed by Joel Edgerton, as well as stars him and Jason Bateman. This is one of the best psychological thrillers that have come out over the last 15 or so years. You have Jason Bateman and his wife are really successful, really seemingly happy couple. And then through like happenstance, when they're out in a mall, they bump into Joel Edgerton, who is this guy who used to go to high school with Jason Bateman. And he's like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, yeah, you. Okay, cool. Yeah, we should get together. And it seems like this cool, like, maybe rekindling of a lost friendship type thing. And then over the movie, you realize it is something so much more sinister, where Joel Edgerton was the subject of so much ridicule and abuse from Jason Bateman. And Jason Bateman, starting the movie off seeming like the hero, is actually like a fucking horrible person. And it's all this really slow built sadistic plan to get back at Jason Bateman, and where it eventually goes. Whoa. So another one like Whiplash and like Lawless doesn't get talked about often with Blumhouse, but if you have not seen it, treat yourself. The Gift is awesome. Oh, Sinister 2. Oh, Sinister 2. You know, I don't actually think the experience of this film is significantly worse than the films that I have in the grabber's basement, but for the sake of absolutely fumbling what could have been an amazing franchise along with just being a bad film, this is going to be our first entry in the sunken place. It is such a shame that they followed up a bona fide hit in Sinister, a movie that is a huge favorite in the horror community, and constantly gets brought back up and brought into relevancy because there's like all these scientific studies they keep doing every year of what is the scariest horror film. And even though I don't agree with this, with whatever study they're doing, with whatever focus group they're doing, Sinister always wins. Like that gets people's heart rates and their, adrenaline going more than any other horror film that has ever existed. You have that as a legacy, and you follow it up with this dog shit movie. Now, I actually have a really good friend who is an acquaintance or friend with the guy that directed this film, and so I've heard a number of things about what went wrong here. And it really is frustrating, the level of just absolute dismissal and is just dismissing this franchise with so much potential as if it's like a project that nobody that was originally involved with the first one wanted anything to do with. I don't fucking get it. But wow, way to fumble what could have been awesome. And little known fact, I don't know if it was supposed to be like right after this or just something that's going to be punted down the line. The intention was eventually for Sinister to merge with the Insidious franchise. And while that idea might not have worked, there's something cool and tantalizing about that it kind of sucks that we don't live in the version of the universe that happened. So Sinister 2, woof. The Visit. This is one that I tend to not be as high on as most people. This is the film that often is credited, rightfully, as being the movie that kind of brought M. Night Shyamalan's career back, because he was in like absolute director hell at that point, where his name would literally elicit laughs in the theater when it would pop up and say a film by M. Night Shyamalan. If you were there from the beginning, it was literally like the most epic, steep fall you've ever seen a filmmaker go, where, Oscar-winning film or maybe even Oscar-nominated of The Sixth Sense, all the way down to a filmmaker that their name elicits laughs. The Visit, quiet little independent release that came out, and people were like, that was actually really fucking good. I think it's okay. I'm going to stick it in Survive the Purge. What I do like about The Visit is I like the fact that M. Night Shyamalan kind of stripped away a lot of his, maybe ego. I don't know what you would call it. Just stripped himself down to basics, went back and did a low-budget independent film, kept things simple, genuinely has a lot of creepy moments in this film, and a couple pretty gross ones too that'll elicit a reaction. What kills this film for me, not being like one of my favorites of his, is the comedy. I've never found M. Night Shyamalan to be particularly good with writing comedic characters and comedic moments. Look at The Happening. You know what I mean? So The Visit, I just don't think the comedy works. The main kid that's like trying to do raps and stuff, it's just always kind of cringy to me. And I thought the twist was incredibly obvious. So those held it back, but I still think it's solid. The Green Inferno, Eli Roth film. This is, I believe, when I ranked it last, was my least favorite of Eli Roth's films. It's either my least favorite or right above whatever is my least favorite, but I'm not a big fan. I'm going to stick this one into the grabber's basement. The Green Inferno, I think, is really effective at what a number of Eli Roth films are effective at, which is like extreme gore, shock value, really kind of getting under your skin, turning your stomach. But just like with The Visit, the comedy kills it for me, which is something that is common with most Eli Roth films. I just don't really get his sense of humor. And it goes into some very strange and off-putting places throughout this film that I just don't appreciate at all. I mean, you got Americans that are like stuck in this cage, and they're in this cannibalistic Amazon, cult, this community, and one by one they're being killed and eaten. And you've got scenes where like somebody's shitting out diarrhea in the corner for a comedy. You got a scene where a dude's jerking off in the corner, and it's just like, what are we doing, guys? And they all get high and they end up eating a dude because they have the munchies, which is the only thing that approaches being funny, but the way that it's executed doesn't really feel like it fully nails that joke. So Green Inferno, whatever it's going for, I've never really cared much for it. Speaking of not caring for it, The Ghost Dimension, Paranormal Activity, what is that, 6? This is easily the weakest of all of them for me, and this one, I'm actually going to stick in the sunken place. I didn't like this movie at all. The biggest issue with this film, like, of course it carries over all of my frustrations and disappointments with the overall just template of this franchise. It doesn't change any of that. But the biggest and dumbest thing they do here is, if anything worked about the Paranormal Activity films, it's suggestion. It's not really showing you a whole lot. It's letting you fill in the gaps. If a cabinet door slams, a door creaks, whatever, you have to imagine what the fuck, what entity, what demon, what ghost is doing all of that. This movie takes all that away and makes like this little like fog venom monster. And so every single time they're going to like do something to scare the characters in the film that are our protagonists, like slam a door or whatever, they physically show the entity do all those things.
This is the worst.
Which blows my mind that that even happened. Like, clearly that was somebody sitting around a table trying to throw darts at a board to figure out something different to do with this franchise 6 films in. But it destroys what works about the franchise. It destroys the entire source of why this franchise has appeal in the first place. It's like having a Nightmare on Elm Street film where nobody fucking falls asleep, or a Halloween film that's set in the 4th of July. So if I was to rank all these films, and I'm sure one day that video will come, this one would go all the way at the bottom. Now we have Hush. This is another Mike Flanagan film, and I'm more of a fan of this one than Oculus. This is a really solid thriller. I'm going to stick this one up into Bagul Made a Copy. And by the way, I am so happy that they eventually got a physical release for this because Mike Flanagan was pushing for it so hard. I'm glad we live in a time where stuff like that still happens, where studios seem to have all but abandoned home media, and there's still some filmmakers out there that are like, the fuck you are, you're putting my shit out there. So Hush is a really good thriller where you have his wife, Kate Siegel, playing a woman who is deaf. And then it's like a home invasion film. You got this psycho outside that's trying to break into the house. And because of her disability, it creates a lot of really solid tension. So check that one out if you haven't. It's really good. Now we have The Purge Election Year. This one, I'm going to stick up into Bagul Made a Copy right alongside Purge Anarchy, but there's a pretty steep decline from Purge Anarchy to Election Year for me. It's still, like, I would say my second favorite easily of this franchise, but it's a bit of diminished returns because it's trying to carry on a lot of what worked about Purge Anarchy, from just like, you know, having the masks and everything be iconic. This does have the most iconic masks, by the way. I always, every Halloween, see a bunch of Instagram pictures of, you know, girls that I went to high school with, girls, they're women at this point, women that I went to high school with and everything, dressing up as the, you know, fraternity or the sorority girls in this movie. And you have Frank Grillo back, who is now in a better spot in life, and he's like a private security for this woman who is the next candidate for president who wants to abolish the purge. So it's got a solid kickoff and a solid plot, but a lot of the journey, a lot of the experience of this kind of feels like we just did that in the Purge Anarchy, and that was done better. So it's solid. It just doesn't stand out near as strongly in my mind as the previous film. Let me describe a scenario to you. It's about a week away from payday, and your car suddenly has this major issue that has to be worked on immediately. Maybe something a little less dramatic. The kids go to open the fridge and it's pretty much empty, and you got to go to the grocery store sooner than later. Or even something that's kind of fun, like having some family members drop by unannounced in town and you got to go take them out for a nice dinner. Do these stories sound familiar? Of course they do. But with Clover, they no longer have to be horror stories. Clover is a financial app that is designed to give people faster and smarter access to their money. They look at it as you accessing your money as opposed to borrowing money, which typically comes with all of those predatory practices and hidden fees of things like payday loans. With Clover, users can advance up to $400 before payday with no interest, no credit checks, and no late fees. You never know what life's gonna throw at you, so take back your peace of mind and access your money without having some of it taken away from you in the process. Short on cash, access up to $400 with no credit check or late fees with Clover. Click the link in the video description to sign up so that they know that I sent you. And thank you so much to Clover for sponsoring today's video. Now we have Ouija Origin of Evil, and who saw this coming? Another Mike Flanagan film, and not one of my favorites, but I've always been impressed by how this film and the way that Mike Flanagan executed this origin story actually makes the original Ouija better. I'm going to stick it in Survive the Purge because there is a number of things about this film that I don't care so much for, but it is effectively creepy. It tells a really solid origin story that lines up all the events and the characters of the first film and the reveals of the first film in a really cool way where you can watch the first Ouija and then watch this, or you could swap them, and I think it's actually a pretty decent little 1-2 punch with the existence of this one. It makes up for a lot of the shortcomings of that original film. So yeah. Power of Mike Flanagan as a storyteller makes all the difference. Incarnate. I forgot this fucking movie existed until I was making this list. This was one of my early reviews. This is actually like the point right here. The Ouija Origin of Evil and this were like some of my first reviews on this channel if you go back. So we have now entered the era of most of these films, if not all of them, I have a review for or some kind of coverage for way back in the day on this channel, all the way up to current releases. Incarnate sucks. It sucks so bad my mind blanked it the fuck out. It was like Control-Alt-Delete. We're not remembering that one. In the Sunken Place. This is yet another generic as fuck demon possession film that tries to rip off Inception, where instead of like a priest and a traditional exorcism, Aaron Eckhart uses like Inception style technology to get into the mind of the people that are possessed and like extinguish the demon from within. There's a version of that movie that could have been cool, but it really just plays like somebody wanted to do a generic as fuck demon movie and they're like, I don't, and people like Inception put that shit in there. And it's just such a small piece of it that it does not overshadow any of the absolute generic and shitty storytelling and characters in this movie. So I have not watched it since theaters, to be fair. Maybe if I rewatched it, it would bump up one spot, but it sucks from my memory. We're going right there. Split. Talk about a victory lap for M. Night Shyamalan. This was a film that was a complete surprise for most people. I'm sticking this up in the Bagul Made a Copy. One of his best for sure. This is one of those films that's also frustrating to talk about because if we lived in a proper world, James McAvoy absolutely would have been nominated for a Best Actor or a Best Supporting Actor Oscar because his performance is fucking incredible in this. And Glass. But it's a really solid thriller, a really good battle of wits between Anya Taylor-Joy and James McAvoy, who is playing multiple characters and doing an incredible job with it. He is the star of the show. Most of my enjoyment of this film is hinged on his shoulders. But then they had the extra little surprise at the end, which is this was a surprise sequel to Unbreakable, which is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film. And at that point was a film that everybody who loves it was like, why did we never get a follow-up to this? Like, it was so ahead of its time. Now we are like thick in the middle of the highest, like most insane level of comic book movie stardom and success and hype ever in history. Where the fuck's my Unbreakable sequel? Well, we got it and didn't even realize it until the last couple of minutes when that score started to kick in. So Split, I have my issues with it. There's moments and there's things about the story that I think could have been done better. But overall, it is a really, really good movie from Shyamalan. And because it exists in this trilogy of movies that I really enjoy, the existence of a trilogy in and of itself kind of makes me look back on it even more fondly. Now we have Get Out. And before I even tell you my placement of this film, I want you to take note right now of how this tier list looks up to this point. It's actually pretty top heavy. Now, a lot of them are in that middle, which, you know, people would, I guess, call mediocre. But from watchable all the way up to amazing, that is the predominant placement of all of these films up to this point of Get Out. Now, let's watch how that changes. Get Out, absolutely fully obsessed. This is one of the best and certainly one of the most important horror films that have come out in the last decade plus. This is a film that instantly catapulted Jordan Peele into almost a household name, especially for horror fans. I mean, I have not been nearly as enamored of his next two films after Get Out as this, but it made Jordan Peele a name that can sell a movie all in of himself because of Get Out. This is a movie that nobody saw coming, that I walked into pretty blind and didn't really know what to expect. I'm like, okay, the guy that does sketch comedy wants to do horror. When we've danced this dance before, it's either going to be great or it's going to be an absolute embarrassment. And holy shit, this is such a cool, unique idea that not only is genuinely creepy, and the more you actually think about it, and especially on rewatch, the more that it's so fucked up and like stomach churning how disturbing the concept is, all the while having really well done social commentary, having a message that is woven into this film that doesn't take like a master's degree in fucking storytelling over at Harvard to really decipher. And it hits home, whether no matter what side of the coin you're on, whether you're a white person, a black person, that you watch this movie and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Point made. Fantastic performances. It's shot wonderfully. Even just the way that he visualizes the sunken place is such a unique thing, especially at the time. Like, this is an all-timer. This is a horror film that has a legacy that it will always be brought up on lists of greatest horror films of all time. And while there's certainly going to be some people that don't agree with that, we all have our different tastes. For me, it absolutely belongs there. So definitely one of the best that Blumhouse has ever given us. Belko Experiment. This was a movie that on its surface should have been a lot more entertaining for me. So I remember thinking that it was pretty disappointing. I'm going to stick it up in the grabber's basement. It's probably more watchable than the other films that I have here, but all I remembered thinking was this has a great cast. It has a great concept that it's a potential for a lot of really good carnage candy and zany action comedy. And I remember just thinking every element of this movie was a half measure. So don't really look back fondly on that one. Happy Death Day. One that I expected nothing from. I'm like, okay, another PG-13 slasher. These very rarely work. There's a lot of PG-13 movies that I do think are good in the genre of horror, but slashers specifically are tough because for me, one of the main things, and for most people, one of the main draws of a slasher film is great gory kills, creative kills. And you kind of cut yourself off at the knees when you go to a PG-13 rating. But this movie was so goddamn fun. I really enjoy Happy Death Day. This goes up to Bagul Made a Copy. Massive surprise. I remember walking into the theater going, I knew somebody that was actually working at the theater because it was the one my wife used to manage. And even talking to them, I'm like, I'll take one for Happy Death Day. And it was like this little joke between us of like, oh, sorry, buddy, enjoy the film. And I walked out going, hey, like, go check it out. It's fucking good. So this is one where I think the slasher element of it is not really the point. It's the comedy and the time loop thing, and they do a really good job with that. Jessica Roth is great. So this is one that, again, big surprise. One of the bigger surprises on this list. Creep 2. Carry over a lot of my thoughts on Creep 1, but I didn't like Creep 2 as much as Creep 1. I'm still going to stick it in Survive the Purge because I think for what it's going for, it does a solid job, but I enjoyed Creep 1 much more than Creep 2. Mark Duplass, again, totally committing, like, disrobing and all that kind of stuff for this movie. So I get the concept. I get the appeal. I wish it worked better for me. Insidious, The Last Key. Oh boy. Okay. Grabber's Basement. You already can tell. I remember almost nothing about this film, and I've seen it at least twice. I remember the key monster. I remember Elise being involved. This is the point where it felt like they were bleeding a franchise dry. Like after the third one, that was almost like an Exorcist 3 situation where to me, I saw the second one and I'm like, you should have done a one and done. This is not built for a franchise. And then the third one being this totally separate story in the world, I'm like, hey, it worked. Maybe do more of that. And then you get the fourth one and I'm like, oops, maybe don't do more of that. No, not a fan. Not a fan. Very generic. Truth or Dare. Yeah, no. In the sunken place. This is a movie that is so bad that Smile came out and everybody expected it to be dog shit because all it did was remind them of Truth or Dare. Almost nobody gave any grace or faith to the first Smile film because they're like, oh, it's Truth or Dare. Nope. And Smile is a genuinely really good, some would say great horror film, and people like the second one even more for the most part. So that is how bad Truth or Dare is, that it kind of like absolutely demolished the whole like Smile gimmick forever until Smile kind of brought it back and did something great with it. This is just goofy. It's just fucking generic and absolutely run of the mill, like Final Destination ripoff with this goofy ass Smile gimmick that isn't scary. It's awkward. It's cheesy. And the ending of this movie can go fuck itself. So not a fan if you can't tell. Upgrade! Fuck yes! Fully obsessed. God, I get pumped when I talk about Upgrade. This is my favorite Leigh Whannell film of the three. Of the four. We have a fourth one we have to talk about. I forgot. Upgrade is another movie like Happy Death Day that I walked into pretty skeptical, and I don't remember why. I don't remember if it was just the trailer didn't do much for me. Like, I knew it was Leigh Whannell, and I really liked Insidious 3, so I don't know why I wasn't pumped for this, but I walked in expecting middling results. And I remember like it was yesterday, I walked outside and before I even got to my car, I immediately got a hold of my buddy Sean Chandler and I was like, I know you felt the same way as me. Go see Upgrade right now. Drop whatever the hell you got going on. And he did. Upgrade is such an awesome sci-fi action, maybe even a little bit of horror in there too. It's such a great genre blender. I think that the whole concept here could have been very generic and like been there, done that. But the way that Lee Winnell executes it makes it its own thing. He brings such a distinct style to the way that he shoots the action sequences, especially, that this is one of the most standout movies on this list to me. And it's one of the movies that I have the most fun recommending to people. When I was at my previous job building airplanes, I had a day where we were all in there, inside the cockpit of the airplane. Everybody's just kind of doing their thing. And an inspector came up and was asking for like, hey, what, Cody, is there like a good movie I should check out that's underrated? And for some reason, Upgrade was on my brain. And so I literally stopped working and I pulled up YouTube and I showed him the first fight scene when he first like lets Stem have full control in the kitchen. And I just played that scene for him, and everybody around him suddenly stopped working like as the scene went on. And there was like 7 of us just hovered around a little cell phone, and people, oh shit, like everybody was cheering and laughing, and you get to the end of it with the little payoff with the knife, and then I cut it off and I'm like, go watch Upgrade. That whole fucking crew of people went home that night and watched Upgrade. So you're welcome, Blumhouse. But yeah, Upgrade, one of my favorites. Maybe my favorite. I mean, Whiplash and the other ones are fucking good. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's a contender. The First Purge. Not a fan. Not a fan. The Grabber's Basement. There's things in here that should work better for me. There's like a little bit of like a John McClane Die Hard thing in the third act. But the problem is, first of all, I'm not really big on the horror prequels. This is an exception that could have been good because it's showing you like, the government corruption that caused the purge to be enacted in the first place. And there's something interesting there, but the way that they execute it, I think, isn't the most interesting way to do it. The problem that I have with this film is that they have a character that is, there's no argument, is a shitty human being. He is a bad guy. He's a drug kingpin that leads to a lot of addiction and death and just absolute decimation of his community. And this movie tries to flip that character and make him the hero in the third act. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, I am not averse to having a morally ambiguous or even a morally fucked up lead character and being able to cheer for them. I mean, we've had bad guy movies before where you root for the bad guy, but the way that they did it here was like, are you joking me? Are you actually thinking you're gonna like Men in Black neuralize me on the first 2 acts of this fucking movie and make me root for this guy? Fuck him. So that, among other reasons, this is just not a good movie to me. Unfriended Dark Web, just like the first one, massively underrated. I might even like this one more than the first one. I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember really digging it in theaters, and this is another reason where I'm like, okay, you did the first one, I really enjoyed that. You did the second one, and it's even more kind of dark and fucked up, and you really expanded the concept a bit, and I really enjoyed that. They must not have done well financially because, Blumhouse is absolutely not shy about turning something into a franchise, and I'm just puzzled about why Unfriended stopped at 2 movies. So Dark Web, big fan. Black Klansman, I need to be honest, this is a film that came out during a time in my YouTube career where I was still working full-time and trying to do YouTube as like a part-time job, and I was also trying to branch more out and watch more of like the Best Picture nominees and stuff like that. But when I first started doing that, I was always just so physically and mentally exhausted that most Oscar-style films, most prestige-style films, I don't think got a fair shake for me. Black Klansman was in that era. So I look back on Black Klansman, and I remember thinking a lot of things about it were good, but it didn't really hit for me, aside from the ending, which is absolutely a gut punch. It is due for a rewatch. So I have no confidence that this placement would stay if I rewatched it, but just based on my memory, I'm sticking it in Survive the Purge. Don't get offended about that, because I know people absolutely adore this film, but it is one that I just think my one experience with it was absolutely tainted, and I'm trying to be honest about that. So I'm still going to get shit for it. There's still going to be some people, no matter how honest I try to be, you're going to be like, you're fucking being unfair. I'm like, I'm telling you I'm being unfair. I know. You don't have to remind me. But that's where it goes. Halloween 2018. Fuck. Speaking of being unfair and having bullshit in the comment section, you sons of bitches. Needless to say, got a little bit of a scorned history with this film and the fans of this film, or at least the people that said they were fans for the first 7 months of this movie's release until they completely about-faced and started regurgitating all the shit that I said from day one. You know who you are. Halloween 2018 is okay. I have never been overly enamored with this film. Goes and survived The Purge. There are things about it that are amazing. James Jude Courtney, my personal favorite performer who does Michael Myers. The Mask, alongside the mask from Kills, which is this mask with some extra detail added to it, is my favorite mask of the whole franchise. There is some really solid kills, both on screen and off screen, and I do not mind the mix at all. I think it's effective. It is one of the best shot films in the franchise. The Oneer is amazing. Tonally, I like what's going on with it for the most part. And, I'm sure there's a couple other things I can't think of right now. My issues with Halloween 2018 is that I feel like the comedy in this film especially is pretty abysmal, which is shocking considering that Danny McBride was involved with the writing, because he is a comedic genius in my mind. And even David Gordon Green, most of his comedies I really enjoy. So I don't know what the fuck happened there. Peanut butter on my penis? No, thank you. I think that there is massive issues with the way that they executed the Laurie Strode character. I understand they were going for trauma and generational trauma and trauma, and we've been stuck in fucking trauma mode ever since this movie came out. Thanks, Halloween! But for me personally, and I will acknowledge that movie has plenty of flaws in and of itself, I think that this specific storyline was done better in Halloween H2O. I think that the characterization of Laurie Strode was a lot more realistic, a lot more impactful, and I think that overall, Jamie Lee's performance is much more believable in that film. There's almost nothing I buy about the way that Laurie Strode is characterized in this. Now, she's badass in the third act. I enjoy a lot of that third act. I even enjoy the turn with Judy Greer, which up to that point is another major issue I have with this film. She is great in a lot of things. I would not say that her choice of how to execute this character of Karen was the best. And there's just a number of things about this that I've rewatched this film so many times. I've probably seen Halloween 2018 like 6 or 7 times at this point, and it never really moves the needle for me. I still think it is very much a middle of the road Halloween film. So that used to be extremely controversial back when this came out, but people have softened on it. So I don't know if there's still going to be some upset little fans where their pee-pee got hurt in the comments, but we'll find out. Cam, this is another film that I think I watched like along with Black Klansman because there was a lot of like hype towards it, maybe even awards talk. Obviously that didn't end up coming to fruition, but this is solid. This is solid. We're going to go and survive The Purge. This is a film about a cam girl who suddenly sees that there's another account that the girl looks exactly like her. So it's like a supernatural identity thief type thing. I remember it being pretty solid. Obviously, it has not stuck in my mind near as much as some other films that are above it, which is why I can't put it too much higher. It was a one-time watch for me, but overall, the concept I thought was pretty well done. So check it out if you haven't. Glass. I know this is going to be controversial. This one's going up in the Bagul Made a Copy. I get why people were disappointed and pissed off about this movie to an extent, but for me, for as much as if you had told me on paper where this movie was going to go before I saw it, I would have reacted like, how the fuck is that the ending of the movie? In execution, I actually think there's a little bit of brilliance to it that, unfortunately, a lot of people don't feel that way. Split got everybody excited. Finally, we're going to get the Unbreakable, guys back together, and this was the movie that we'd all been waiting for. We're going to have Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson back on screen together, and now you've got James McAvoy in the mix. Like, this could be one of the greatest sequels of all time. And even though I really like it, I think it falls quite short of that. But I really like how subversive this movie is. Now, sometimes M. Night Shyamalan, actually more times than not, completely steps on his own dick when he tries to be subversive. And most people would say this is one of those examples. For me, it works because I appreciate the way that tonally and thematically, this really does wrap up what was set up in Unfriended, Jesus Christ, Unbreakable. This is what happens when you talk about a lot of movies in a short amount of time. This sets up, this follows through on the theme of Unbreakable about the impact on the overall world. And as much as on the surface, a lot of us, and myself included, if I'm being honest, when you walked into this film, you just wanted a good old-fashioned comic book showdown between hero and supervillain, between Bruce Willis and Mr. Glass, and Mr. Glass was going to use the Beast as like his muscle henchman. And that movie could have been awesome, but ultimately, because of the title of this film especially, this is a film about Mr. Glass achieving what he wanted. The most fascinating villains to me, especially comic book villains, are the ones that are the heroes of their own story. They're viewed as a monster by everybody else, but the end goal to them is justified by the evil means that they went through. And this is a supervillain who gets what he always wanted, which is for the world to be awakened to the existence of superhuman beings. And so even though the specific plot device of how we get there, especially towards the Bruce Willis character, is a very hard pill to swallow, the overall ending of the film, I think, is pretty brilliant. So I could go on about Glass. I don't want to defend it the whole video, but this is one that I get why people are disappointed by it, but I am a very passionate defender of Glass. Split's better, but I really like Glass. Happy Death Day to You. Happy Death Day to You is solid. It's not as good as Happy Death Day. It goes for a little bit more of a sci-fi feel than a slasher feel, and I kind of dig that they changed it up a bit, but I'm going to stick it and Survive the Purge. I just don't think that the characters or the comedy side of it is nearly as strong as the first one, and I think a lot of people agreed. That's why we haven't been quick to get a third one, though I am faithful we eventually will. So, watchable, decent sequel. Us. Not a fan of Us. This is the most divisive film that Jordan Peele has made of the three, by the way, because I talked to a lot of people, like my buddy Chuck, who's my podcast co-host, and he says Us is his favorite of the three. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like easily his weakest. So this is a movie that you either love or you just really don't think it works. There's so much about this that I enjoy. There's so much about this that I think carries over some of the brilliance of Jordan Peele from Get Out. But this is the movie of the three for sure. And some of this is still present very much in Nope. But this to me is where Jordan Peele very clearly gets a bit self-indulgent, and all of the metaphors, all of the messaging, all of the themes that he's trying to achieve is completely undone when you actually just look at the base level storytelling, because logically nothing about this movie makes sense by the end of it. And I could go through all the reasons why. I've talked about it ad nauseum. I'm not going to waste your time with that. For me, the home invasion side of this film, super effective. Performances are great, especially Lupita Nyong'o. I love the utilization of, I got 5 on it. It's almost become like as well known as like a horror score as a rap song. But as soon as you start to get all the answers and all the reveals, this thing just goes off a cliff as far as I'm concerned. And the ultimate twist of the film, I pegged in the first 3 minutes. Like the opening of this movie, I was like, that feels like they're setting up this, and I was on the money. So I know people get tired of me saying that. I saw it coming, like I act like I'm a giant genius or whatever, but some movies absolutely do show their hand and are telegraphed too much, and I've heard plenty of people say that. Us is one of those times where, yeah, you showed your hand very quickly. Now we have Ma. Honestly, the only thing that ever sticks in my mind about Ma was I did this smart-ass video because Ending Explained videos were all the rage at the time this movie came out with. And me, along with a lot of others, were just so fucking tired of them and always rolled our eyes because most of them were movies that you have to be brain dead to have the ending explained. Like, it's not like movies like Hereditary or anything like that, where there's a lot of different things you can discuss and a lot of imagery and subtext, and you could really do a really insightful video on. People were doing like ending explained videos on like the Belko Experiment, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And it was getting views. That was the frustrating thing. So I did this real smart ass video that's still on my channel that is literally 30 seconds long, where it's my intro for Ma Ending Explained, and I'm like, the bitch died, the movie end, and then it's my outro. So some people got a laugh out of that. Some people got pissed off because they thought I was shitting on YouTubers that they liked. And maybe I was a little bit at the time. But Ma, that's the thing that sticks out of my mind. I think Octavia Spencer gives a good performance here. I think that she could have and should have done some more horror. And there's definitely some disturbing moments and disturbing places this movie goes for in the third act, but not one that comes together all that well. And it's certainly not one I ever wanted to rewatch. So we're going to stick it in the grabber's basement. Bloodline. This is another one that I didn't realize was Blumhouse, but this is actually a pretty solid little flick. I'm going to stick this one into Survive the Purge. This is basically Sean William Scott doing a version of Dexter. Is it original? Not really. Some of the ways that they execute it is certainly unique and goes in directions that are not the way that you see them go in Dexter that I appreciated. I think his performance is good. I actually like the fact that he's kind of transitioned into doing some horror stuff where he did this. He did Becky, the second one, Wrath of Becky. He was just in Dolly. I want to see him do more stuff. I think he's always been a pretty underrated actor. Of course, his strength and his legacy is comedy with Stifler. But I've always liked Sean William Scott. I wish he would do more stuff. I mean, The Rundown, he can do action too. I mean, fucking love this guy. So maybe my love for Sean William Scott is coloring this a bit, but I enjoy this film. I think it goes in some interesting directions, and yeah, it's worth a watch. Oh my God. Woo! Boy, we got a doozy next. I almost think this needs its own fucking tier underneath in the sunken place. Whatever's worse than that is exclusive to this piece of shit. Black Christmas 2019. Fuck you right in the sunken place. And it's almost embarrassing and unfair for me to stick it next to those other films because I feel like suddenly I'm like bullying them by putting them in the same category as Black Christmas. Removing something that is in a totally different category as like a low budget independent film that is just kind of squeezed into theater with a Fathom event like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the original, and Jeepers Creepers Reborn. If I take those two movies off of the list, Black Christmas 2019 is the worst movie that I have watched and reviewed as far as a wide release film with money and big names behind it. Worst film that I have watched and reviewed since I've been on YouTube. I despise this movie. And it's not just because it's a feminist movie. It's because it is the absolute worst version of a agenda-based film. And they did not hide this at all. From the moment that they announced this movie, you can go back and look up the initial press release for this, where they dropped it like 7 months before the movie was supposed to come out. And they're like, hey, we're doing a Black Christmas remake with a reimagining over at Blumhouse. And it's going to be about women taking down toxic men. It's something like that. And you read that and you're like, first of all, ugh. Second of all, what the fuck does that have to do with Black Christmas? Absolutely nothing. This movie has dick to do with Black Christmas. The only thing that even remotely ties it to the original, or I guess the franchise at this point, is that takes place during Christmas, and they do the shittiest callback possible with like the plastic over the face kill for like a moment. Other than that, this is a film that is totally its own thing that very clearly somebody at Blumhouse said, yeah, we can't sell this at all. But if we throw Black Christmas on there, we can market it as a reboot. We can market it as, you know, or another chance at this franchise. And the thing that pisses me off about that is that Black Christmas is a brand, if you will, that does not deserve to be diluted with bullshit like this, because the original Black Christmas is one of the greatest horror films ever made, and it does not have the respect and the legacy that it should have. It is always an underknown, like absolute hidden gem, despite most people that have seen it saying exactly what I'm saying. And it's to the point where Black Xmas that came out like in 2002, 2003, I hated that movie when I first watched it and when I reviewed it. And then when I saw this, I immediately softened on Black Xmas a lot. Like I went back to it and I was like, you know, I was really unfair and rough to you. You're actually okay. Take all the messaging and everything out of this. This is just one of the most bland and lifeless and generic slasher films that I've ever seen in my life. Awful storytelling, awful characters, awful twists and villains that are absolutely obvious from Jump Street, by the way. Like having like an unmasking nature to the third act of this is fucking ridiculous. But then you add insult to injury with having this movie be so blatantly message first. If there is any film in the existence of cinema that the anti-woke crowd that drive me nuts absolutely have a point about, it's this one. Black Christmas 2019, it's all your fault. From the opening text of this film, you just feel like you are having the most stereotypical angry feminist screaming at you through a megaphone for 90 minutes, to the point where I have friends that are absolutely full-blooded feminists that, again, I'm not saying that like feminism is a bad thing, just in the context of this movie. I have friends that are feminists that watched this film and fucking hated it because they were like, the existence of you absolutely makes what I want to happen all the more harder. Like you are the antithesis of what our objectives are. You existing fucks our thing up.
They don't give a damn about you. They don't like you. I don't like you.
I don't care. I'm here for the girl.
The girl don't like you.
So yeah, needless to say, probably my least favorite Blumhouse film ever made. Shame on you. If you even hear anything in this video, go watch the original Black Christmas. Don't watch that shit. The Invisible Man. So this is the third film by Leigh Whannell. And by this point, he had my full faith. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And it was. Bagul made a copy. Very, very cool, interesting, and creative modernization of a classic Universal monster, where you take the Invisible Man, you kind of give it a technology upgrade. You have this theme at the center of it all of like an abusive, toxic relationship, which totally fits. Elizabeth Moss is great. There is some genuinely great tension built in this movie, just with the whole concept of there could be somebody in this room and we don't know. I mean, where she like, you have things where it like pans across the room and you're like, it could be over there, it could be in the corner, it could be nobody in this room. We don't know. It's so effective the way that it's shot at building that. And then even the actual scares in the movie where it's clear somebody is there, or the dinner scene, it's some of the best shit. Like as far as reactions in theaters, some of the most memorable reactions I've had in a movie. So Invisible Man, absolute top tier stuff. The Hunt. This was nothing but controversy, but you know what? The movie's okay. I'm going to put it in Survive the Purge. This was a movie that was never going to win. It was basically a film that was going to try to do like a comedic, dark comedy take on like liberals versus conservatives and do something like a death game with them, which, as you can imagine, you pitch that and immediately everybody gets pissed off and offended and wants to cancel your movie. And then you go see the film and it's actually a lot more creative and a lot better at kind of spreading the roasting across both sides than you would have expected. Coming from Hollywood, I think it's easy to assume and understandable to assume that it's probably going to lean towards propping up the left-handed side as the heroes and probably demonizing the conservatives. But this is a movie that really does take a hard look at both sides and effectively roasts and makes jokes at the expense of both sides. And that's what works for me. I'm somebody who I've always said I'm an independent. I think that there is absolute bullshit on both sides. But this is a movie that I think realizes that. And it's a shame that because of the controversy, I don't think hardly anybody gave it a shot because it's pretty decent. It's an entertaining movie. You Should Have Left. This is not a good one. We're going to put this in the grabber's basement. The shame of this is that this is David Koepp kind of reuniting with Kevin Bacon, which we hadn't seen since Stir of Echoes. And I love that movie. So I walked into this as like, mentally, this is the follow-up to Stir of Echoes. This is a weird movie. You have Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried as like a married couple, and they move into this house, and just weird shit starts happening in the house, but like not in a way that I think is really creepy. Like it's just bizarre ideas. Like there's literally a sequence where Kevin Bacon is like measuring the footprint of the inside of the house, and the inside of the house is bigger than the outside of the house, which is physically impossible. And so he's like, what the fuck? Like it's, 55 feet across on this wall inside, and it's 45 feet across on the outside. How's that possible? It's just weird shit like that. So it's a movie that's very puzzling. It has some unique ideas, I guess, but the way that it executes it is like, is this supposed to be scary or tension filled or just weird? I don't know. It's an odd one. The Lie and Black Box, I'm going to rank pretty close to each other and just knock them both out right now. We're going to stick The Lie in the sunken place, and we're going to stick Black Box in the grabber's basement. I'm going to be honest with you. I remember almost nothing about Black Box and almost nothing about The Lie. This came out along with two other films. They were doing like this promotion thing one month where like once a week, Blumhouse was going to drop a brand new film to streaming. And I remember being really excited about that just for content's sake, where I'm like, oh, cool. I got 4 brand new Blumhouse films I can review. And The Lie was first, and then Black Box was second, and then I tapped out. I was like, nope, I don't even care what's on the next 2 of them because you lost me. The Lie, I do remember that it's about this girl who basically says like, oh my God, my friend just fell in this river and she's probably dead. We have to find him. And so the parents... or actually she makes a lie about like she accidentally pushed or hit her friend and she fell into the river and died, but her body's not there. It's been washed away. So it becomes a movie where you have 2 parents that are trying to cover up, the fact that their daughter is going to be legally at fault for potentially the death or at least the assault of another person. And the degree that they go to cover this up is asinine. And then you get to the end, and when you title a film The Lie, what do you think the twist is? So that was frustrating in and of itself because it was obvious, but also just narratively, when you get to the end and the twist is revealed, you're like, you're the dumbest motherfuckers on planet Earth. Like this movie just pissed me off. So yeah, bad memories about that one. Oh God, let's just continue that. The Craft Legacy. in the sunken place, there is actually a pretty good amount of potential and certainly a hunger for a craft follow-up. I mean, just look at the Forbidden Fruits movie that just came out a couple of weeks ago. Most people that like that like it because it's kind of given them it's scratching the itch that the craft left, where it's like a modern version of the craft. People really dig that movie. It's got a cult following. This is a legacy sequel that does everything wrong. And even with somebody who I really like, of Kaylee Spaney being at the center of it, it is just awful. It is awful as a movie. It is awful as a follow-up to the craft. And to add insult to injury, the scene that it leaves off on is like, why isn't that the movie? Why did you just waste my time and then dick tease me with that, which we're never going to get because this movie was a massive failure. Not a fan. Freaky. Freaky is pretty solid. I'm going to stick that up into Survive the Purge. This is a Christopher Landon film, and if one thing he does good, which he did the Happy Death Day movies as well, is he does really good at doing these little like genre blenders of callback to a classic movie plus slasher. So Happy Death Day is like Groundhog Day plus slasher. Freaky is like Freaky Friday plus slasher. You have Catherine Newton here, who is great, and she swaps bodies with this prolific serial killer played by Vince Vaughn. And so you have a movie where Catherine Newton, this teenage girl, is now this, the soul of this serial killer is inside of her. And so she's wrecking shit, and you have all these gory kills. And this teenage girl is stuck in the body of Vince Vaughn. And you can imagine a lot of good comedy coming out of that. So very solid, fun movie. This came out during COVID lockdown, I believe. So it was also very nice to just be able to get an entertaining movie at that time. But Freaky's a good one. Check that one out for sure. It's better than Happy Death Day to You. So I was toying with putting it a little bit higher, but I don't think it's quite as good as the movies on that list. Forever Purge. Oh, man. Oh, I almost want to put this in the sunken place. There's some entertainment value to be had, so I can't quite go there, but it's close. This is yet again diminishing returns for the Purge franchise. But it adds the insult, or at least adds salt to the wound, I should say, of being such an on-the-nose political statement that it just turns me off. I don't care whether it's a political statement I agree with or disagree with. I don't like movies just being like a political message first and having nothing else to actually say about it. You can do creative storytelling. You can do really good thematic expression through telling a story and having some subtext or having some kind of a commentary woven in there. Think something like Sinners. Forever Purge is just like having the message in Black Christmas, where this is just trying to make a statement on immigration. And so you have this concept of the Forever Purge, a group of people who have started to take over the powers that be in America. And rather than the purge being one night a year, now it's all the time. And it essentially takes Americans and makes them trying to jump over the border to go to Mexico. I don't really need to say anything else. You understand what the movie is trying to get across and what the whole message there is. Maybe some people get more value out of that than I did. I just feel like when you are so on the nose about it, it ceases to be insightful. It ceases to actually get people thinking. And like the objective of a movie like this should be, we want you to watch this and be entertained and then walk away and actually have some potentially difficult, but hopefully some nuanced conversation with people about like, that actually got me thinking and really put me into the shoes of Hispanic immigrants. And now I'm looking at it in a different perspective. That is obviously what the objective should be. But the way that it's executed, nobody walked away from this movie thinking that. Like the people that were already on that side did not have anything to be gained from this. And the people that are against immigration, this is not an insightful version of that commentary that's going to change their mind or even get them thinking. So to me, that's like the biggest waste and the biggest frustration with a movie like that is like, you have absolutely tarnished any entertainment value by putting message first, and your message is absolutely for naught. Like there's no winning with that. So nonetheless, even if you take that out of it, at this point, it's like just Purge shit, but not nearly as good as Purge Anarchy and Purge Election Year. So diminishing returns. Halloween Kills. Back in the grabber's basement. Halloween Kills, such a massive disappointment. This had the potential to be the best of that trilogy, one of the best Halloween films, purely because of the carnage candy. When you call it Halloween Kills, this movie should be a fucking relentless bloodbath. And for a moment, it feels like it's going to be, and then it kind of takes its foot off the gas. And then you get this distraction with social commentary about mob mentality, and you get this Danny DeVito looking dude that everybody thinks is Michael Myers, which is the most idiotic sequence of this entire franchise, possibly. Well, I take that back. It's arguably the most idiotic sequence in this trilogy. Very important distinction because, yeah, I forget there's resurrection exists. Nonetheless, goes in some narrative directions that not many people liked. You have a whole thing that could have been a cool element of this movie of evil dies tonight, but they hammer it into your fucking skull so much that it has become a meme to the point where people have asked Anthony Michael Hall about it, and his response is literally, I didn't write the script right. So even he knows it was like way overdone. The way that they utilize Laurie Strode is going all the way back to Halloween 2 and the criticism of that movie, which is you take our heroine and you just put her in a fucking hospital bed for the entire film. Waste. Love the fact that we got Will Patton back. I was pissed that he was seemingly killed in the first one, so that's cool, but he's also just stuck in a hospital bed. I've talked about these movies enough. It's just a massive, massive disappointment. There's some great kills in it. Should have been way more. I love the Michael Myers mask. This is probably my number one mask with the burnt look of it, of Halloween 2018, of the entire franchise. My number one. And I even think that there's some solid moments with Judy Greer in this movie that she does a little bit better than the first film. But I mean, there's so much about this movie just does not work for me. It is not a good middle chapter and doesn't set up a third film that I was all that interested in. And we'll get there. Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, a movie that I barely remember anything about. I know that this was like intended to be like a franchise reboot, reset, where it's not so much about being stuck in a house and having some paranormal shit happening. It's about a woman who is searching for her mother, and she goes to like an Amish community or something like that. Beyond that, I could not tell you a single thing about this film. If you put a gun to my head and said, describe a 3-second sequence in this movie, I'd be dead. So that, along with the fact of just, at this point, it's like beating a dead horse. Paranormal Activity doesn't offer me a whole lot personally, and this is one of the ones that offers the least. So we're going to stick it into Grabber's Basement. Firestarter. This is one just alongside Ouija and The Gallows that I was on the side of like, yeah, it's got its issues, but it's nowhere near as bad as everybody seems to be making it out to be. And I think that one of the main things that does heavy lifting for this is I think Zac Efron's performance is pretty damn great here. And there's a number of effects and everything I think are cool. It just really drops off in the third act. I'm not a big fan of the original movie either. So, I don't know. I think I might have even said at the time I like this better than the original. I don't know if I'd stick to that. But I think Firestarter it's not great, but it's not the worst by any means. So we're going to stick it into the Grabber's Basement. Oop. Not that it matters, but continuity. Keep it there. Dash Cam. Jesus Christ. If I was ranking most insufferably miserable protagonists in cinematic history, this fucking chick would definitely make top tier. In the sunken place. Like, it's found footage. There's a big knock against you. It's not interesting found footage. It's not scary or effective found footage. So there's not even a relief for my patience. And this character, it's the only thing that people talk about with this movie is, holy fuck, that woman was miserable to spend 5 seconds around, let alone 90 minutes. And this woman is a real life online presence. So it almost felt odd to me where I almost wonder if there was like, even though they were going to eat shit with like losing money, maybe, I don't know, maybe it made a profit. It almost felt like they were tricking her into taking this role so that she can just destroy her reputation and just absolutely make a fool of herself. But Jesus, if you've seen Dashcam, I don't need to say anything more. If you haven't seen it, there's no reason to see it, but this main character is one of the worst movie characters of all time. The Black Phone. Finally get to be positive again.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
The Black Phone, I adore. I adore this movie. The Black Phone is a film that I knew I was going to like. I mean, look, I love Ethan Hawke, so just like with Sinister, if he's going back into horror, I dig it. He's teaming back up with Scott Derrickson, who did Sinister. I'm like, cool, I'm not going to watch the fucking trailers. I'm going to go in and watch this, and hopefully I love it. And it did. I don't know if the trailer would have ruined it for me a bit like Sinister, but this is such a cool, unique concept. To me, even without the existence of the second film, it's like, this is a new horror icon. You know, I'm not going to say he's like a Mount Rushmore horror icon, but the Grabber is so fucking striking and unique with the way that he looks and the way that Ethan Hawke plays him. the supernatural twist in here of having a kid that can kind of communicate with the dead and them giving him pointers on how to not have the same fate that they did. Such a great story. Some of the best acting you're going to see from Madeline McGraw in here as the sister. I love this movie so much. Now we have Vengeance. This is another film that you never really hear get brought up with Blumhouse, and it's actually a pretty nice little hidden gem. I'm only going to put it up into Survive the Purge because for me it is kind of a one and done movie, but it's a really solid black comedy. There's even some thriller elements in there. So you got this character who's like a journalist, like a podcaster, and he hooked up with this girl way back in the day. She ends up being killed. And if I remember correctly, like their parents find letters or something like that where they think that he's like her current boyfriend. And so he's kind of guilted into going to the funeral and not wanting to like clear the air and just kind of, I guess, give the parents peace, and kind of gets coerced into investigating her death. And so it is very much a darkly comedic film with some thriller aspects and murder mystery aspects. It's really solid. So if you haven't seen it, check that one out. If you're a Whataburger fan, you'll really enjoy it. They/Them. This is a movie that had a lot of potential, especially starring Kevin Bacon. I had a lot of faith in it. The concept here had so much potential to do something great. You have Kevin Bacon as a guy who leads this conversion camp where people from the LGBTQ community will go to try to be converted to being straight, which I don't know if those still exist. I know it was definitely a thing at one point. Maybe they're still out there. I'm certain in certain highly religious communities and stuff, there probably is. But that concept inherently has tension and horror built into it. Thinking of a person that, whether you agree with their lifestyle or not, that's who they are, and going to a camp to have them changed into something that they're not. Like there's potential there. And this movie did nothing with it. It just turns into a generic as fuck slasher. Like the fact that it's set during a conversion camp barely plays any play into the actual movie. Like it has no significance going on. So to me, it's almost like one of those films that totally wastes its representation. Like you could have done something so insightful with this. This is a movie that could be impactful, could be like what I hope for the Forever Purge, a movie you watch and you walk away and you have conversations about it. It gets people talking, and you just used it as like a selling point and did nothing with it. Almost like it was not important to you at all in the first place. That would piss me off almost more than anything else if I was in the LGBTQ community, where it's like, oh, great, I finally get my movie. Oh, well, not really. Now we've arrived at Halloween Ends. I think at this point, it's definitely not as widely regarded as the worst of the franchise, the way that Resurrection is, but it is easily the most divisive movie of all 13 Halloween films. And for me, I'm going to stick it up into Survive the Purge. There's a lot of things I like about this movie. I think it's ridiculous that they did this for the third film of a trilogy. I think the overall concept of the Corey Cunningham character and that whole theme of, the evil just tainting the town and everything. Brilliant idea for a spin-off movie, similar to Season of the Witch. Something I honestly think they should have done. Like, they didn't have long with the rights. They should have shot this movie and had a different crew also making the Corey Cunningham film, and they could have squeezed 4 Halloween films out before their rights reverted back to whoever the hell holds it now. So Halloween Ends is 75% Christine-inspired Halloween spin-off story, like Haddonfield story, and 15% actual conclusion of this trilogy, which is the Laurie versus Michael storyline. Now, do I think it's ridiculous to even have a trilogy of Michael versus Laurie? Yes, I think it's obvious at this point, and was kind of obvious from the start. They never had enough story to actually merit a trilogy. It was just money, money, money. Money talks, baby. Let's do 3 of them. So I think the best parts of Kills mixed with the best part of Ends could have made for a really good 1-2 punch of a Laurie versus Michael showdown. But the mix is just wrong here. And so you have this really frustrating thing where if you're like me and you actually, despite how against the grain it is, really like the idea and the concept and the character of Corey Cunningham, you get to the end of the movie and they just fucking chop it off and give it the least satisfying conclusion possible and just immediately pivot to the Michael versus Laurie stuff as if the Corey Cunningham shit was just dispensable. And it's like, dispensable, bitch? You just spent 90% of your movie talking about this fucking guy, and now it doesn't matter? What the fuck? Mixed with the other frustration, which is the predominant frustration, which is the mob amount of fans that came to this for that big final epic conclusion between Laurie and Michael, and you don't get it until the last 10 minutes, and even the version of it you get is not necessarily the most satisfying thing for most of those fans anyway. So just a whole lot of really bizarre, ill-fated ideas here, and they will never convince me this was always the plan. They fucking stick to that like glue. Bullshit. This was a movie that was something else entirely, and then COVID happened, and they sat around and got, overly creative and had paralysis of analysis and totally changed this until it turned into something else. And they just tried to save face by saying, oh, we've always built up to this thematically, like all the way from 2018 to this. And look, I'm a defender of Halloween Ends, but some of you guys that get passionate in the comment sections like, well, if you didn't expect this, then you're just stupid. You don't pay attention. Yeah, go fuck yourself. You're not smarter than everybody else. You're just trying to do work for the movie. So again, Halloween Ends. Overall, I like the movie. There's probably days where I would rather rewatch that than Halloween 2018, as bizarre as that sounds. But I also completely understand, share, and will air out passionately all of the frustrations and dumb decisions that they made to make this movie a thing. And how the fuck are you gonna have a franchise that bitches out Michael Myers twice? Okay, like we're still not forgiving you for the Buster Rhymes shit. Now you're gonna have Corey Cunningham just absolutely suplex this dude in the sewer? What the fuck?
Look how they massacred my boy.
Now we have arrived at Megan. Talk about another time of absolutely fumbling the ball. So Megan, I think, is solid. It's going to go and survive The Purge. It's towards the bottom of that list, if I'm being honest. This is a movie that I don't know how positive I would be on it if I wasn't the father of two girls. My youngest loves this movie. She loves Megan. Megan is like her Chucky, and it charms the hell out of me. I watched this in the theaters, and I went, it was enjoyable, but I really wish that this was hard R. I wish they would have went further in the slasher direction. I think most people that watch this movie felt that way, but they liked the fact that they captured the Gen Z generation, the younger kids, the TikTok generation, and they were not about to let that potential money go away by pushing it even further into a rating and closing all those people off from accessing it in the theaters. And so you get a film that does have some mild commentary on AI, as well as, children's dependency on technology and parents using technology as like a supplement to actual parenting that I think is interesting enough. Not like it goes super deep with it, but cool enough of an idea to at least pounce on. And it very much has like a Gen Z driven type of tone to it and a comedy to it and things like that. So it's a movie that works. I mean, it was a surprise hit. Me personally would have enjoyed it a lot more if I got the more adult, more rated R version. And they dangled that fucking carrot, didn't they, with the whole unrated cut. As soon as the movie came out, they're like, by the way, those of you bitching about not enough gore, we've got that coming to home video. And then I actually fell for it, despite my skepticism, bought it. And it's literally got like maybe 3% more gore in it. Absolute bait and switch. But Megan, solid. Now we have Sick. Sick is a movie that I actually saw at my very first Fantastic Fest. I wasn't a big fan of it. We'll stick it in the grabber's basement. It's one of those movies that honestly rides the line a little bit. Like I could put it in Survive the Purge. If there was a tier in between, it'd go there. Sick is an interesting idea at first. This is a Kevin Williamson script where it is a COVID era slasher. And there's interesting things that you could do with that, but there's two major problems with this movie. First of all is that I don't think the actual slasher side of the movie is very well done at all. Like it just feels like a total afterthought. It's more of like a chase movie. And so the gore hound in me is absolutely not satisfied. The slasher fan in me was absolutely not satisfied. And then if you even just get into what is appealing here, which is the Kevin Williamson styled commentary and riffing on COVID era culture and the goofy ass things that a lot of people did at that time and the things that we were led to believe was what we were supposed to be doing, it's not really clever enough to merit diminishing all the other elements of the movie. Like there's genuinely funny bits in here, like the best one being where a girl's, the classic scene where she's running out of the woods. Oh my God, she's covered in blood and a fucking car comes up and she's beating on the window. Please let me in, save me. There's a fucking guy chasing me. And the girl's like, oh, hang on. I gotta get my mask on. Did you test positive? Are you good? Like, okay. Clever scene. All the rest of it, all the way down to the motivation of the killers, pretty on the nose. And The other issue is that I think the movie kind of came out too quick. You know, like we were only a year or so, at least in my corner of the country, which, you know, California and everything, they were still knee deep in all of it. But we were like a year or less removed from like the heaviest, worst section of COVID. And so it was almost like too soon. It's like, this is the last thing I want to think about or talk about or remember is all this bullshit that we've all been going through. So it was almost too soon. So it's okay. It's decent, but yeah, I've said enough. Insidious, The Red Door. Man, what a disappointment this one was. This one's going to go into the grabber's basement. I was fully in belief after Last Key there was nothing left to do with this franchise, and they actually won me back with the idea of this. First of all, with Patrick Wilson being the director, I was like, cool. Always curious to see what an actor can do when they jump into the director's chair. And also, we're going to go back and we're going to revisit the family from the first two. We're going to see what they've been doing like 10 years later. I'm like, okay, I'm on board for that. Let's do it. And there's a couple of creepy sequences. I think that Patrick Wilson has potential as a director, but this thing was wash, rinse, repeat of all the shit we've already seen. And maybe even an even more egregious version of what we got in The Last Key, because it just kind of like takes the third act and it's like, let's just do the third act of Insidious again. We have that movie. Do something different. We're going to bring back the lipstick face demon. Fuck yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, we're just going to do the same thing where he's like up in his little workshop and we got to get Dalton. And okay, whatever. So yeah, big disappointment on that one. We got a sixth one coming later this year. I haven't watched the trailer. It sounds like that, like the little elevator pitch for it, of being able to like pull people out of the further. Maybe that'll be enough of a shot in the arm to do something wildly different with this, or maybe it's going to be very minute and the rest of the movie is going to be more just Insidious stuff. We'll see. The Passenger. This one is, oh man, this is another one like Sick, where it's like riding the line between them. I'm going to stick it and Survive the Purge for Kyle Gallner's performance alone. This is a film that is a thriller where you get this guy who is just very timid. He doesn't stand up for himself. And he works at this fast food joint, and Kyle Gallner is another employee at the fast food. And like the movie kicks off with this asshole who works there, who's like tormenting and bullying the main character. And then Kyle Gallner just comes in with a shotgun and just fucking annihilates him. And so it almost becomes like The Hitcher, where you get this like regular guy, like this basic dude who is now like hinged to this psychopath. And they kind of go on a little bit of like a journey to try to push this lead character into adulthood and kind of make him grow his balls a bit. There are moments where it sounds very cool, obviously, and it is very well done. And there's also pieces in the story where I feel like it just really doesn't come to the most satisfying conclusion with either of the characters. I don't completely buy the journey of the main character, and nor do I completely buy the directions that they take the Kyle Gallner character and the source of why he's so psychotic and the way that his performance kind of goes from calm psycho to a little bit more erratic psycho towards the end. So it had pieces, it had bones of a movie that I could have really dug, but it just didn't completely come together for me. But like I said, for Kyle Gallner alone, I think it deserves to be one notch above the films below it. Totally Killer. Totally dug it. So this one is also going to be in Survive the Purge towards the top of that list. This is a film that I also saw at Fantastic Fest, and this is not a Christopher Landon film, but it's very much like in that vein of that Landon subgenre, if you will, of taking classic movie plus slasher, and this one is Back to the Future plus slasher. You have a girl that there is like this legacy in the town of this killer that plagued her mom's group of friends in the 80s. And the killer suddenly comes back in modern time, and she ends up jumping into this time machine and going back to the 80s. So she has to hang out with her mom and commingle with all of her mom's friends and her dad and everybody, while also trying to decipher who this killer is and potentially stop him. It's a really fun movie. And the unexpected fun element to it is that, much like The Hunt, it is a film that is kind of riffing on Gen Z culture as well as like boomer culture, I guess. Things that seemed extremely normal and commonplace in the 80s and how ridiculous it was and how problematic some of it is, while also absolutely roasting Gen Z for being just so over the top about all of it. So it's one of those films where it strikes a really funny balance, where no matter what side of the coin you fall on with that, you can get a good laugh out of it and you can laugh at yourself. So that was a film that I really dug. The only pitfall, which keeps it out of the next category, is I thought that the reveal of the killer was not only obvious, but not satisfying at all, as like a conclusion to this movie. So it kind of drops the ball a little bit, but it's fun. Exorcist Believer. This is a tough one. It's somewhere between In the Sunken Place and The Grabber's Basement. The filmmaking competency makes me want to keep it out of In the Sunken Place, but it was such a bad experience. I almost feel like it belongs there. I'm going to stick it there. Fuck it. Just commit to the hate. Exorcist Believer is a dog shit sequel. Now, I am somebody that, much like with what I was saying with Insidious earlier, is a franchise that I have always thought was ridiculous to try to make a franchise. That is a one and done movie. It is often hailed as the greatest or scariest horror movie of all time for a reason. And with the exception of Exorcist 3, which I love even more than the original, that is like Insidious 3, where it's like it's its own thing. So it's a sequel, but not really. So it's kind of a bit of a anomaly in there, but all the other movies I don't think are good at all. I mean, Exorcist 2 is dog shit, one of the worst movies ever made. The two different versions of the prequel, I don't like either of them. And then you have Believer. And this thing, like, I don't think most of us had any faith in this from the beginning, whether you liked the Halloween movies or some of them or not. At that point, Halloween Ends had came out. The Halloween fan base had fully turned on David Gordon Green as if he was the only person that was, making creative decisions. They were like, fuck it. He fucked it all up. I don't want to hear anything. Doesn't matter if I loved Halloween 18 and Kills. He's dead to me. And what did Blumhouse do? They immediately hand him another franchise that was intended to be a trilogy that David Gordon Green was going to be the main director and writer of. And pretty much everybody went, this is such an obvious bad decision. Like, not only does David Gordon Green's style not feel appropriate for Exorcist, and I don't hold him accountable completely for Halloween Ends the way everybody else does. And even I felt that way. It was like, this match doesn't work. But also, a trilogy of sequels to The Exorcist, when I can't even fathom how you can do one of them, and the overconfidence to announce and plan all of that when you haven't even seen or felt out the reaction to the first film, it was just all bad decisions all the way around. And you go to watch this movie, and it was an epic fail. Again, competently made, like shot-wise, lighting-wise, couple sequences are pretty, creepy, and it's decent as far as the technical craft, but the story and the characters, no, absolutely not. Why is the mom from The Exorcist here? Couldn't fucking tell you. She's there so they can put her in the trailer, and she did not mince words about basically saying that about, they came to me numerous times, I kept telling them no, and then they agreed to give a bunch of money to this charity that I was in. I was like, fuck it, fine, where's the script? I'll show up. Not a good advertisement for your film, by the way. That came out before the movie. And then you have this whole plot about these two little girls that disappear, come back, they're both possessed. And the third act of this movie turns into like Exorcist Avengers, where it was such a on the nose offensive decision to try to have the elements that are classic to the original Exorcist, but do it in a way that doesn't offend like modern America. And so rather than have a movie where the Catholic Church has to be the hero, which is inherent to the story of The Exorcist, they're like, nope, we got to have all the different religions come together. We got to have, the Buddhist guy and the priest, and we got to have, all the different people come together, and the love of the community is going to save it. And it's like, I'm not even Catholic, and that pisses me off.
No, God! No, God, please, no, no!
So yeah, I mean, it's as bad as 2. No, it's not as bad as 2, but it's a movie that just offers nothing. And it is like the biggest poster child, maybe the biggest poster child on this list of just a bunch of bad corporate decisions that came to fruition. Oh, now we got Five Nights at Freddy's. The first one, okay. The first one is on the low end, but I'm putting it in Survive the Purge. I think the first one is decent. The first one I had an okay time with. This is a movie that, I had only experienced the game like a couple of days before I played through. I think I even live streamed it, like playing through the first 4 games, like, 20, 30 minutes each just to get an idea of the vibe of it. And I love the animatronics. I think the movie overall is shot well. I think that Josh Hutcherson, as well as a couple of the other cast members, do pretty good in this one. And especially Matthew Lillard. I love Matthew Lillard. So, you put him in a movie, especially as a villain, I'm there, baby. That's a selling point for me. I think this movie did an okay job at trying to spin a narrative around the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's and somewhat do something to deliver fan service. It wasn't like a so insufferable or egregious version of fan service the way that the sequel is. So this one I thought was okay. A decent start for a franchise that I fully had faith would only get better. And they would look at the criticisms of the first one and say, okay, heard, we're going to do better the next time. Put a pin in that. Now we have the 2024 Blumhouse Blunder trilogy, starting with Night Swim. Nope, absolutely not in the sunken place. This movie was dog shit. I think the two lead performances are great, and I wish they had a better movie around them. I mean, when you think of haunted swimming pool, automatically you're pretty cynical, you're pretty skeptical about what the fuck kind of good movie can you make out of that, but there's potential to do something there if you have a good story. This movie doesn't have it. It doesn't have it at all. There is somewhat of an interesting thing that's built up, and then it just goes nowhere. I hated the ending. No, not a fan of that one at all. Then you have Imaginary, which I was toying with whether or not I liked it more or less than Night Swim, but it's still in the same exact spot. So I'm also going to put, you know what? No, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to put that one in the grabber's basement because there's at least potential there. It's just they didn't give it enough of a budget to realize the potential. This is basically trying to do something where an imaginary friend is like a monster. And there's this whole imaginary friend, like evil world, nightmare realm or whatever that had so much potential to be awesome and creepy. But like I said, one of the things that Blumhouse likes to do is keep their movies cheap, and can't argue with the results. But this is a film that needed more money. To do the best version of this story, to be the best version of itself, it needed more money. And so the budget restrictions of this absolutely cut this movie off at the knees. There was other major issues with it. You can go watch my review. It's so unmemorable that I can't even specify what specifically about characters or performances or story bothered me, but that's the big thing I walked away with was you fumbled what could have been a great movie by being cheap as fuck with it. And then Afraid, which is way worse than Night Swim and still on the same exact level. This is a movie about an evil AI, which even before AI was like a culturally relevant issue like it is now, we've had a ton of those types of movies, and this is one of the most generic, creatively devoid versions of it. You got John Cho and his family, you got this little like Alexa thing that gets brought in that totally runs their lives, and then it starts to get a little bit psycho. It's dog shit. Speak No Evil, the one redeeming factor about Blumhouse in 2024. This is a film that I was so skeptical about because I don't like the original, not because it's not well made, but just because it's a movie that makes me miserable and I just get angry about it. Some people think that that means that's a great horror film. It's effective, but if I can't enjoy it and it just makes me angry, I can't get value out of that. So in and of itself, a remake or a reimagining of that story, I'm walking in expecting it not to be my thing. Then you had the fact that it was only going to be like a year removed from the release of the first one. And I'm like, doesn't feel like we need a remake to that film. Like it's a foreign film technically, but it's also predominantly in English. And so there's not even like that whole justification, which I can get behind of people don't like watching foreign films, some people. So an American remake, I think sometimes can be argued as being necessary. This was not one of those times. And then the trailers came out and it's like, here's the whole movie doing that Blumhouse thing. Here's the twist. Here's the third act. Here's shit that's definitely in the end of the film. Have a good time, guys. Hope to see you in the theaters. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, James McAvoy was the only reason that I was interested in seeing this. And I watched it and I really liked it. Despite the fact that the trailers and everything were just trying their best to ruin the film, I was like, that was actually really good. I understand why I think most people would prefer the original. It's definitely got more bite to it. It's way more bleak and nihilistic. It's got more punch to it for sure. This one, more Americanized, softening some of those rough edges, going for more of like an action thriller third act than something that's just unbelievably bleak. But I enjoy that more. We can talk about the merits of what's more effective. I enjoy that more. So I had a good time with this film. I thought James McAvoy was awesome. I think that even some of the things that annoyed me about the original that carry over here are done in a less frustrating way, like the bad character decisions. And so I actually really dug this remake. All that to be said, it's going to be going up into Survive the Purge towards the top of that list for sure. House of Spoils, I saw the premiere of this at Fantastic Fest. It was pretty underwhelming. This one's going to go in Grabber's basement. It's kind of going for like a mix between like The Bear and Witchcraft, where this woman who is a chef is trying to open up this restaurant, and it's built on this cursed land where all the shit out in like the produce and everything that she grows has like these very dark powers to them. And it's got potential for that concept, but for me, the execution just never really moved the needle for me. Like, I just thought it was okay. So that's where it goes. Wolfman, oh boy. It's not in the sunken place, but as far as disappointment level, if I was ranking it on that, that would be bottom tier. Wolfman, oh, that is the one miss of Leigh Whannell's career. And I had so much faith in this. I had so much excitement about this, but this just wasn't it. I honestly believe, like, the lore in my head of justifying how Leigh Whannell made this film is that he was just ready to be done with Blumhouse for whatever reason. I'm not saying that they had bad blood, but it felt like he had signed a deal with Upgrade to do like 3 movies. He did Upgrade, he did Invisible Man, and they're like, oh, by the way, we need you to do another Universal monster film. And I just felt like his heart wasn't in it. It felt like he didn't really have as much passion about this as the previous 2, and it all came out on screen because this was just such a dud. On paper, maybe could have been a cool idea, going from more of like a disease angle to werewolf, lycanthropy, whatever you want to call it, versus the traditional bite and full moon. But in execution, it was just such an underwhelming experience. Not enough wolf stuff. The transformation, which is the key point of a werewolf film, no thank you. Yeah, there's even some really heavy-handed commentary in this film about generational anger and father transferring or like kids having the anger and the short temper or their father, and the way that they executed that pissed me off. Go watch my full review. I give more context to it and everything. I'm not going to get into it here, but for me, it was like the most ridiculous way to try to get that point across, where it's like you're almost defeating your point. It's like you're almost making a point in the other direction. It's so bad. So Wolfman, oh boy, what a disappointment. Woman in the Yard, another one in the sunken place. This is a film that, save for the actual finale conclusion of the movie, it is Grabber's Basement all day long. It is just a very run-of-the-mill, generic, creepy entity haunting a house type movie. It's so riddled with cliches. It's literally about a woman in the yard. It's about a woman that is covered in black veil who is sitting in front of this house, and she is staring at this house, and as the day goes on, she gets a little bit closer. And you have these, for reasons that aren't entirely believable, a mother and 2 kids that are confined to this house and can't leave, can't walk the fuck away from the haunting. But where it ultimately goes was such a distasteful and detestable direction for me that I hated this movie. And I don't say that word lightly when it comes to art. It takes a lot for me to hate your film. But all the way through the movie, I'm just bored and underwhelmed and feel like I'm seeing things I've seen 1,000 times before. And then you get to the conclusion of this film, and basically it's trying to do some kind of an exploration and a commentary on mental health and somebody having the desire to take themselves out of the equation. And they go with such a messy, convoluted, like trying to have your cake and eat it too ending, where it's like, did she do it? Didn't she do it? I don't know. It's up for you to interpret. But all of the breadcrumbs, all of the evidence, all the things that they show you in relation to what has been established in the film, definitively for me makes it a downer ending and makes it such an irresponsible ending. I'm all for horror going fucked up and bleak, and I'm not even saying that I'm conveying something like it has to have like a trigger warning. I'm not for any of that either. But it was such a dog shit way to execute such a sensitive subject that it just pissed me off. So Woman in the Yard, one of my least favorite films from last year. Drop, another Christopher Landon thriller. This one's actually really solid. We're going to stick it up into Survive the Purge. Really fun movie. Over the top as fuck. It asks a lot of your suspension of disbelief, and understandably for a lot of people it was too much. But cool little thriller where you got a woman who goes on a date. She gets these little drops to her phone saying, you have to murder your date or we're going to fucking kill your son. And so it's about her trying to navigate that situation and figure out what's going on without tipping off whoever's watching her. I really liked it. Megan 2.0, the third time. Is it the third time? Might be the second time. You see Blumhouse completely fumbled the ball on a potential franchise. This one, it's between Survive the Purge and the Grabber's Basement, but I feel like I got to put it in the Grabber's Basement. I think a lot of the heavy lifting for this is just me being charmed by my youngest really enjoying this, and even my teenage daughter really enjoying this. They took Megan, they basically tried to do a Terminator 2 sequel where it's more action sci-fi and not at all slasher horror. And I'm not going to say there isn't entertainment value here, because there is moments in the film that I did enjoy myself, and I did not hate this film at all. I would watch it. But why in God's name did they feel that that was the correct decision, when the most consistent criticism of the first film from fans, people who are indifferent, and people that didn't like it alike, all saying this needs to go further with the slasher stuff? Why the hell do you hear that and your pivot is to take away the slasher shit entirely? So, I mean, this was just a wild thing to watch. I was actually in the room with a producer of this film at Monsterpalooza last year, standing next to one of my best friends, listening to him go on and on and on about how Megan 2.0 is going to be this massive fucking hit and it's going to take over the summer. I mean, talking about it like it's going to change the world. And me and my buddy, months before even seeing this film, are both looking at each other like, you sure about that? It was a massive bomb. And within a couple of days, to his credit, you had a very self-aware and transparent Jason Blum go on a podcast and say, yep, we totally fumbled the ball on this one. We totally misread the room. We made a lot of decisions that are obviously the wrong choice. And now our potential new massive franchise is going to suffer, potentially die because of it. I'm not completely convinced they won't eventually come back with a Megan 3 and go full slasher with it. Some people are leaning on the side of this is it. This killed it forever. We'll see. But Megan 2.0, whether I can tolerate it or enjoy pieces of it, absolutely indisputable that it was a massive mistake. The Lost Bus. I didn't realize Blumhouse had a hand in this one, but this was an Apple TV film from last year with Matthew McConaughey telling a true story about this bus driver who's trying to escort this bus of kids out of this massive wildlife fire. Pretty solid thriller. Paul Greengrass directed it, so he's a solid director. You know, he did a lot of the Bourne movies. I think Matthew is really great in this, especially towards the end, especially. He's got like this emotional thing with his son, played by his actual son. And so the real life emotion comes through. It wasn't like top tier thriller or anything like that for me, but it's really good. So going in to Survive the Purge, check that one out. Now we're at Black Phone 2, and it breaks my heart that I can't stick this one right next to the original and Fully Obsessed. This one's only going to be making it up to Survived the Purge. I was pretty disappointed in Black Phone 2. Now, walking into it, I was skeptical because for as much as I love the original, I never really thought there was any room to sequelize that. Absolutely a movie I felt like should have been a one and done. Not everything should be a franchise. But even when they announced it, and they announced that Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill was coming back, the writer, the creative team that made the first one, which we did not have in Sinister 2, even that made me a little bit more faithful, but still, I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be. Is it going to be a prequel? Like, if you've seen the first one, obviously there's narrative things that make it difficult to figure out exactly what they're going to do. And then, despite me not watching the trailers, the first teaser or whatever dropped, and all of a sudden I get a bunch of DMs saying, holy shit, dude, did you see Black Phone 2's trailer? They're going full Freddy Krueger. That's all I had to read, and I was fully bought in. Like, holy shit, of course. Of course they're going to go supernatural with the grabber. That's awesome. If they're going to lean into that fully and go full Nightmare, like, fuck yes. And I go see the movie, world premiere, Fantastic Fest. And the whole Freddy Krueger style of the grabber I thought was awesome. It really did scratch the itch that I have been fucking gnawing at for a long time now, my Nightmare on Elm Street fan itch. And I didn't even care how much of a blatant ripoff it was. Like, it's overtly Nightmare on Elm Street, but I didn't even care because Freddy ain't around to claim his throne, so whatever, somebody should do it. I thought all that was great. Madeline McGraw, yet again, best actress in the entire movie. She's phenomenal. I think it's shot really well. I think the way that Derrickson uses like the Super 8 grainy footage to let you know you're in the nightmare world was really cool, really well done. But story-wise, it's pretty much exactly what I thought. A movie that is trying to force its justification of being a sequel, and it never really won me over. It never really sold itself to me. It does so much to try to expand the concept of the first film, which part of the charm of that movie is how small and kind of tight-knit it is and how contained that story is. And they just try to make it so much more than it ever was intended to be. They have like all this added lore. They have this added history with the mom of the kids that honestly, it kind of diminishes how much I think the story and the characters work in the first film. It doesn't like make it where I don't like the movie, but it adds things in there that don't make any sense to me. It's like a square peg in a round hole. So I saw the film twice. I watched it in the theaters when it finally went wide too. I actually liked it a little bit less than even the first time that I watched it. So even though I think it's okay, I think it's a decent sequel, I don't think we needed it. You know, people always say, like, is any movie really necessary? I think that's ridiculous. It's like just a blanket way to cut that conversation off. This is one of those sequels that I don't think was necessary. But a lot of people loved it. A lot of people love it more than the original. A lot of people who don't like the original think that this one was awesome. So it's divisive. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Remember me saying that at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's, I was like, okay, we have some problems here, but I have full faith they're going to look at the criticisms and do an even better movie the second time. Well, they went the opposite direction. They said, we hear your criticisms and go fuck yourself. This is for none of you. So this is another one that just massive, massive drop. Going in the Grabber's Basement. This is a movie that has no story. It has no character arcs almost at all. It is literally just Easter egg hunting. It is just putting moments, visuals, little winks and nods from the video games and stretching that out for 90 plus minutes. It has nothing that I go to the movies for. And as much as I can try to understand and appreciate some of the more diehard Five Nights at Freddy's fans just really being won over and enamored with that Easter egg hunt and just having their pants charmed off with, oh, I get to see that moment. I get to see that moment. Oh, there's that reference. There's that piece of lore. I get that. I also think that there is a critical lack of self-awareness in that crowd where it's not that difficult to look at a movie like this and understand why those outside of the diehard Five Nights at Freddy's fandom that's already established wouldn't really get into all of this. And rather than hope for more, rather than hope that a movie exists that is able to bring in new fans, please the existing fans, but also bring other people in and make them enjoy and understand the awesomeness of Five Nights at Freddy's along with me, rather than have that attitude, you have this gatekeeper mentality of like, good, fuck you, I hope you don't like it, it's for me only, bitch, get out of the theater. And the biggest disappointment is that Blumhouse themselves absolutely fueled that type of mentality. They had a social media post where they posted a bunch of people like having these crazy out of theater reactions for TikTok. And then they posted the critic score for Rotten Tomatoes and said, this movie's not for you. Okay, well, my money's not for you then, assholes. Like, I hate that. I fucking hate that type of mentality. I understand that if you make a film and you believe in it and it gets a low score, there's a disappointment and a frustration with that. But let's not act like the shit's not valid. Let's not act like everybody, both fans and critics that were off on this movie, were not in unison and saying the exact same shit. It's not like all the multitudes of people that walked in, casuals, normies, and fans alike, were having a great time, and just a bunch of snubby ass little mustache twirling critics came in and said, it's not a good movie.
The worst movie ever! And sinned!
For as many times as Blumhouse will do something great, they will do something stupid like that that absolutely just drives me up a fucking wall. Where it's just, they will call out the critic score for a movie like this and then forget that the original Paranormal Activity, the movie that, you know, put Blumhouse on the map, is fresh critics, rotten audience. So what's your response there? Nonetheless, you FNAF fanatics can keep this one. Not for me. Lee Cronin's The Mummy. This is the brand new film that just came out this past weekend. A movie that, again, seems somewhat divisive. This is the follow-up, Lee Cronin's follow-up to doing Evil Dead Rise, which I like. It's in competition for my least favorite of the franchise, but every movie in the Evil Dead franchise I would give a thumbs up to, so it's not really saying like it's bad. The Mummy is a film that on its surface, I had the worry of, this feels like something being disguised as a mummy movie, and it's really not going to be what I think most people want or expect from a mummy film. And that's exactly what it is. You will get variations of mileage out of that depending on who you are. If you walk in and you realize, oh, this is an Evil Dead film with some Exorcist shit, I don't need the mummy stuff. That's awesome. I'm here for that. Cool. You'll enjoy this. If you're somebody that walks in wanting mummy stuff, there's some of it there, but it definitely feels like the smallest piece of the pie. And then on top of that, this is a film that its main style of horror is gross out horror. It's doing things like trying to have bodily fluids and things being like chewed on and licked and peeled off. And it's all none of it's really intended to like freak you out. It's meant to just like shock you in like a stomach churning way. Like, oh, that was nasty. That's what this movie goes for more times than not. And you get variations of mileage out of that. Some people love that. Some people that like really is an effective horror experience for them and they dig it. People like me, I dig it, but I think it's best in small doses. If that's all you're giving me and that's the tone of it throughout the movie, it really does overstay its welcome. Beyond all of that, the biggest issue I had with this film, and there's some positives, by the way. I don't mean to just hold on the negatives. It's a well shot film. I really like the way that they utilize the house, the color palette, the lighting, everything like that. Definitely gives you like that ancient Egyptian vibe, even though it's in a house in New Mexico. A couple of solid performances here. The girl who is the mummy, as well as the lady that plays the kidnapper, who's like the magician. She was really creepy as well. But those issues added in with the fact that this is a really poorly written script. There are so many moments in this movie that what is happening makes absolutely zero sense. And every time I say that, I always see the same types of comments from people that like the movie, where they're like, you expected a horror movie to make sense? Yeah, I have higher expectations for horror than you, apparently. I don't expect it to just be lazy and nonsensical. If you have a character in one scene that one by one rips every single one of their teeth out, and then it just hard cuts to the next scene and nobody ever reacted to that happening, nobody ever said, holy fuck, we got to take you to a dentist, or, oh my God, here's some gauze, or what the fuck just compelled you to do that? No, it just next day, doesn't matter, inconsequential. There are so many moments like that in this movie. Even the entire core kickoff to the premise, which is little girl's kidnapped. 8 years later, she's found in this old ancient sarcophagus. She's visibly fucked up. She's got leather skin. Her face is all contorted where the eyes aren't matched up. The toenails are 6 fucking inches long and they're all deteriorated and she's all contorted. This girl is, health-wise, an absolute nightmare, even though her levels are technically okay. And medical experts just let her go home with her family. Get on a plane and then go across from Egypt to America, which how that happened, I don't fucking know. And then get into a house with her family and stay there with no follow-up, no medical attention needed whatsoever. And even as the situation develops into insanity, which takes about 5 seconds, the parents never once look at her and go, like a third of her fucking leg skin just peeled off. Maybe we should call a doctor. I have way more examples in the review. I kind of went hard on all the logic stuff because that stuff drives me nuts if it's all throughout the movie. It's a bad script. Is the movie okay? Yes. It's nowhere near the bottom. So I'm going to put this in the grabber's basement, but it is towards the higher end of the grabber's basement, to be completely fair. I gave it like 2.25 out of 5. It was a disappointment though. Some people are going to love it. Check it out if you haven't. If it sounds cool, if it sounds like your style of humor, of horror, and you don't mind an illogical script, you'll have a good time with it. If you get hung up on that stuff, or you don't really dig gross out horror, or you just wanted a mummy movie, you might want to wait for this one. And now we finish with one of the crown jewels on this list, which is the upcoming Blumhouse release. Now, they attached themselves to this after the movie had already premiered at some film festivals, so they did not like literally produce this film like from the ground up, but they are now attached to it as one of the bigger names.
There's a red Ferrari in the driveway, and there's a pile of cash on the table. I don't know what's going on, but I want in.
And that is Obsession. I saw this movie at Fantastic Fest. It wasn't its world premiere, but it was one of its like first screenings last September. I have been singing its praises ever since. This is absolutely going to be the most talked about horror film of 2026, unless I prayed to the correct gods and Resident Evil kicks fucking ass in September. But Obsession, right up there into Fully Obsessed, as it should be. This movie is awesome. This is just a good, simple, basic, but really fucking creepy and disturbing film. The basic premise, you got a guy who is very much enamored with this girl that he works with, who clearly doesn't really return that. He's kind of friend zoned, and he buys this little gag gift called the One Wish Willow, and he makes a wish that this woman loves him more than anything else in the world and cracks it, and he gets his wish. But his wish comes true in all the most fucked up and deranged ways that he absolutely never thought of. So this is a movie that is nightmare fuel if you have ever had a like toxically dependent relationship with somebody, or you've ever had like a psycho ex, or somebody that just, you cannot leave the fucking room without them like shaking, like I gotta be near you. Like, it is absolutely wild. Indy Navarrete, who is playing the girl that has the wish cast on her, unbelievable performance. Physicality wise, like, it's one of the creepiest things you are ever going to watch this year. The way that she walks in certain scenes disturbs you. The way that she just goes for it with the psycho level obsession is top tier. I mean, I don't want to overhype the movie, because sometimes you can get people like me that see movies early and they just talk constant praise, and people walk in expecting like The Godfather. It is an incredible horror film that is genuinely one of the most creepy and unnerving things I've seen in a long time. Just walk in expecting that. Walk in expecting to be really, really unnerved, and you will have a fantastic time with Curry Barker's Obsession. Definitely one of Blumhouse's best, and the movie, like I said, that I expect to be the most talked about horror release of 2026. And you don't have to wait that long. It comes out in just under a month. I think May 14th, May 15th. So please check it out in theaters. Well, that's it. That's the end of the tier list. And you know what? This is a perfect visual representation about how I feel on the legacy of Blumhouse. They are capable of giving us some of the best films of the year, some of the best films that these genres have to offer. They have a lot of really good stuff, but my God, is it quantity over quality? I mean, you see the divide there. As soon as I got up to Get Out, you see the shift of way more movies per year being dumped out, and most of them, at least 2/3 of them, being movies that kind of fail to deliver or are really rough. So I hope at some point they dial back in, really focus on quality over quantity, because they give us some of the best shit. I mean, Get Out, Upgrade, Black Phone, Obsession. These movies are fucking awesome. I want more of that. I want to be able to walk into a theater, see the Blumhouse Productions name, and get excited and know automatically I'm about to see some badass shit. They're at a point right now for the last couple of years where honestly, I think a lot of people, when they see the Blumhouse name, they get skeptical. And I want them to find a way to get back out of that, because they've shown us they can give us some awesome fucking movies. So let me know what you guys think down below. What are some of your favorites? Obviously, like I said, the tier list link is going to be in the video description. So please do your own if you have seen a lot of these. You can take out or add movies that you have seen that I haven't, or ones on here that you didn't get a chance to check out. But nonetheless, let me know down below how much fun you had with this one, and what do you think about Blumhouse? Give me a couple of your top favorites and a couple of your biggest disappointments. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2026 new release reviews. I'm also going to put a playlist up here of all of my tier list rankings. I've done a bunch of different ones. So whether you want to talk about horror or subgenres or settings or video game movies or holiday movies, there's something in that playlist you're going to have a good time with. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.